Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Knights of the Dawn podcast. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Megan.
And today we will be talking about chapters 13 through 18 of Book 3, Grip of the Shadow Plague of Fablehaven series. And boy, oh boy, isn't this a fun one.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this half of the book. This is where it gets really fun.
Yes, interestingly, though, it comes after our cast has been whittled down severely.
Yeah, there's like depressing moments right before this where it's
100%.
like, they're like the lowest, maybe not the lowest in the book, but like feeling pretty low, being like, crap, what do we do now? So
Do nothing. We got it. He's got it under control.
Yeah.
But, okay, so we'll actually jump into it now without talking more meta. But, so, start out, chapter 13, Secret Admirer. This chapter was very entertaining. I love how aware and self-conscious that Seth is during this, beginning of the chapter.
Yeah.
It starts out, he's laying in bed, and this is just after, Tanu and Coulter have communicated that they need Seth to follow them for information on how to stop the plague, or at least how it originated. And Grandpa, being a protective grandfather, as he should be, is saying no. And so Seth is now going to take matters into his own hands.
Yeah, and I like the beginning of this because he's, sitting there thinking, and he's thinking about risks, and, he's really thinking about what risks are worth it and what makes a risk worth it. And I think that's showing his growth and his maturingness. He's not mature, but he is matured more than
Maturing.
Yes. He's on the way. But yeah, I really like this because he's thinking about here, I'll just read this. Had he been stupid in the past? Sure. Peeking out of the window on Midsummer Eve when he had been warned not to look had been stupid. The only benefit had been to satisfy his curiosity, and he had nearly gotten his family killed. This summer he had taken some risks for flimsy reasons as well. Of course, when the risks seemed small, sometimes he didn't mind acting a little stupid. But he had also acted courageously. He had overdosed on Courage Potion to confront the Revenant in hopes of saving his family. That risk had paid off. So he's comparing how he used to act and how he acts now, and I really like that he's starting to learn risk and reward.
Yes. And I love that he also he specifically defines the difference between stupidity and courage.
Yeah.
He's I've been stupid. Heck yeah. But he recognizes the difference. Stupidity is taking risks for no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Courage is taking risks for good reasons.
Yeah.
Even if you're scared, you're still going to take the risk of possibly failing in order to protect or save someone. And so he sees this next venture as courageous and not stupid. Grandpa, I think, disagrees. Because, of course, I love that Grandpa's gotten to the point now where he just knows Seth so well that he has ordered Hugo and Mendigo to keep watch that if Seth tries to leave, they are to grab him, apprehend him, and keep him on the property.
Uh-huh. And Seth almost outsmarts him, too, because he takes a gaseous potion so that Hugo and Mendigo can't physically grab him.
Mm-hmm. And they're Seth's okay, let's go. And he's about to follow the shadows because nobody can stop him. And Grandpa finally just goes, fine, you don't want to listen to me? Fine. At least I can stop you from being too stupid.
Yeah, he's I'm going with you.
And I still love that Seth, when Grandpa goes back inside to get changed, he still kind of eggs him on, okay, let's go.
And then Dale's I saw that.
Nuh-uh. Your Grandpa's true to his word. And I love that Tano and Coulter are oh, okay, yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Well, because Grandpa's if you really want to prove that you have,
Possession
your
of
mind,
yeah.
You stay until I can come back. And they're okay, well, we can't leave then. Because they want to prove to them that they can be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
So they go on their little escapade to visit an old demon named Grawlis, who Seth knows basically nothing about. And Grandpa knows that he's...
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough to be terrified. He knows that he's dangerous and that he's very worried that if they go talk to him, they won't come out alive.
Mm-hmm. And yet here, Seth once again outsmarts Grandpa, where Grandpa, they get close, and he just says, nope, not happening. Like, I went here, I came here on good faith, but now that he knows the destination, he says, nope, we're turning around. And Seth's like, okay. And Grandpa loosens his hand on his arm, and I'm like, and you done messed up, Stan. You done messed up.
Yeah, you trusted him.
That was your first mistake. And Seth just vaults out and just books it up the hill, getting past the point again where Hugo and Mendigo can't follow him. And so he is now, like, Grandpa's like, fine!
He's so exhausted. He's, like, tired mentally. He's like, I'm not getting any sleep tonight because of this kid.
And he probably at this point knows as well. Like, he thinks Seth is going. He honestly believes that Seth is going to his death
like,
right now,
running to his death.
And his grandpa just says, "I'm going with you." And
that's admirable.
Yeah, honestly, if I'm being honest though, I bet he just didn't want to have to face his grandmother afterwards.
Yeah, Grandma's
sources
who might not even
terrifying.
be awake right now. Maybe she didn't even wake up. I don't know, but I will say, like, in these chapters, and I love the side of Seth that it shows, and this is the side of Seth that we saw at the end of book 2 when he went to go face down the Revenant. Something I really admire about Seth is that if it's within his ability, or even if it's not within his ability, or what he thinks is his ability, he will do whatever it takes to, like, get things done and, like, do what he needs to do and do what needs to be done.
To take care of his family.
Yeah.
To take care of the preserve. He did that even in book 1.
To do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
He will try his hardest.
He will leave a circle of protection to go save a chicken. He will go and face off against a Revenant that he knows turns people into white albinos because he knows it needs to be done.
And as he gets older and more experienced, he gets more capable and, like, learns more about how he can accomplish these goals that he has better.
And I think it turns into, like, it becomes more courageous every time because he learns more, and therefore he's able to make more calculated risks.
Yeah.
He's not, and he does less stupid risks. Like, one could argue that just going into the lair of a demon is pretty much of a stupid risk. If he had known more, he might not have done it. Like, probably that's why Patton or Warren would never have wandered into there without being shadows like Tanu and Coulter. Because they knew that was stupid. And then we have Seth, who doesn't yet know it's stupid, and says, no, this is courageous, I'm going.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And he's very interested because it's stupid, but not as stupid because he has a reason to go there. He knows at least that, Tanu and Coulter are trying to tell him that Growlithe has information that can help them, and so that's why he's taking the risk. It's still stupid, but it has a little more calculation than just going to go.
It's just he's calculating based off incorrect data or incomplete data.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Whereas Grandpa is calculating from much more complete data and is like, no, this is not the correct, you know, not to have the correct solution.
To be fair, it does pay off, though.
It does.
Amazingly.
And that's where the stupid bravery part comes in. So we finally get in, and I love that we here find out one of Seth's new abilities, kind of similar in the way that we found out about Kendra's.
Yeah. First of all, that Seth actually has abilities.
Yes. Yeah.
That's surprise, number 1.
So basically, Seth is now immune to magical fear. Well, we also knew that he could see the shadows.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we find out why, basically. We get some history lessons, and I love how, Graula's is just, like, this pitiful wreck who's, like, just, like, moaning and groping and just, like, moaning out these words in between as well.
Sorry, I just was looking. I think it's really funny that when Seth runs away from Grandpa from the cart, he uses Seth's full name. He's like, Seth Michael Sorensen. You returned this cart this instant. And the only other time that has happened is his grandma when they went to go find Nero. And I just think it's really funny that now both of his grandparents have, like, yelled at him using his full name, which makes you know that he's in big trouble.
In very similar situations. When he's booking it away, doing something that they can't do because he knows it's the right thing to do, and only he can do it.
It's so funny, though.
It's hysterical.
I think it's hilarious. Anyway, sorry. I just saw that, and I was like, oh, yeah, I wanted to mention that.
I'm glad you did. No, but yeah, so Growlithe, and I just love how, like, Seth is just, what's up? He's so nonchalant. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't understand what's happening.
He doesn't understand that he should be paralyzed by fear, but he's not.
In both senses of the word.
Yeah.
Like, because there's the magical fear that, like, dragons project and demons can project.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Revenant projected that literally, like, freezes you and your mind, and you cannot move.
Yeah.
Like, physically, you are incapable unless you have certain abilities. Like Kendra and Seth.
Mm-hmm.
Kendra was able to keep her mind when she locked eyes with Shalice earlier this book.
Yeah, it's true.
And now Seth, however, is also able to keep a hold of his faculties as well. Like, he's scared, and he straight up says that. He's like, yeah, I know you could probably kill me really quickly if you wanted to. And Growlithe is like, no, that's not the point.
It's like, you don't understand.
You aren't afraid. Like, look at your grandpa. Petrified, just like you were with the Revenant. I'm projecting that right now, and you're fine. So that's like, oh, so I'm magic.
Yeah.
And I love how he just sees this as a win. Like, oh, cool. And, like, we find out why when he pulled the nail out of the Revenant's neck, it left an imprint on him.
Mm-hmm.
So basically now he has shadow powers.
Yes, he has been affected by a dark talisman, just like Kendra was affected by a light, not talisman, but
Potion?
thing. Fairies, I don't know.
She drank the potion thing and then
That's
they had to
true.
kiss her, so yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, I just like I love how we're having the light and dark sandwich.
It's in the
Opposites
middle.
of- Yeah, that's a good point. But like we have like the complements, the opposites,
Mm-hmm.
yet they work together as we see later on.
Starting
I
to
always
get
enjoy
there.
that. I always enjoyed the fact that they took such. I like it. Basically.
Yeah.
Moral of the story: I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So we get some history. So at this point, I think we do have it confirmed pretty much. The Sphinx is a traitor.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as Growlithe says, yeah, he let that prisoner loose before he left the grounds, which, to be fair, Growlithe could be lying. We do not know for sure. But
yeah.
at that point, it is pretty much confirmed.
It's like, yeah, like two different people, demon, whatever.
Blix. Demon and Blix.
Blix and a demon have, like, kind of, telling, like, the same story, It kind of leads you to believe that maybe it has some truth. And it's interesting because, like, they thought that the nail had, like, disappeared or, like, disintegrated or whatever, like, it was gone. But then Growlithe explains that, no, it was actually there, and if you'd gotten there earlier, you could have gotten it. But because
prevented all of this.
Yeah, and prevented all of this because what it was is that the Sphinx took the prisoner from the quiet box, who Growlithe actually tells him that it was someone called Navarog, who is a demon prince, who's actually a dragon, and
The
he's
dragon
evil.
demon prince.
Yeah, and so he says that he saw Navarog take the nail and take it to one of the other demons on the preserve, who's named Kurosok. And then that nail was used to create the plague.
Mm-hmm. And so we get some backstory about Kurosok. Like they say, he's more substance than shadow, and that he survives by being bound to a host.
Yeah.
And so they're all like, okay, so now we have some more clues. Who's the host? How are they spreading it? But now they have some big hints.
Hints,
and
yeah.
It's very essential. And they also have, again, confirmation on the Sphinx's treachery.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Big surprise.
Yes. Speaking of surprise as well, I think that was like my favorite part of this entire conversation is why that we were having it in the first place. Like the entire reason Growlithe is helping out right now is because Seth surprised him.
That's true. He does say that.
And I just love how Growlithe is talking. He's like, yeah, I have a omniscience in this preserve. It's fine. But and so he's like, I was watching you when you were facing off with the Revenant. And he's like, I saw you facing off. I saw the spark of the courage potion fail. And he's like, oh, yep, he's done.
Yeah.
And I love how he straight up says, like, if you were a seasoned warrior with many victories and battles under your belt, and you'd still managed to pull that nail out, I would have been deeply impressed. But you? I was surprised. And he said, after thousands of years, I brought you here so I could thank you for my first surprise in centuries.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that part because, like, I feel like that never, like, connected in my brain where he said that, like, the courage potion that Seth used ran out.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last, I mean, like, you kind of, like, feel it in, like, the second book when he, like, feels the fear coming back
He says,
on.
like,
But, like,
the faint spark fades,
yeah,
I think is what
yeah.
he says.
But I just love that because it's just, like, it was Seth. Like, the courage potion got him there, but it was Seth, not the courage potion, that pulled out the nail.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
And it was also, like, at the hardest part because it talked about the closer it got, the higher the intensity of the fear was. So that last part, the hardest part, the most difficult moment when he was actually actively being strangled by the Revenant, he still managed to yank that nail out, even being paralyzed by that fear. And I'm just like, yeah, that... We were all surprised, Growlithe. Mm-hmm. We were all surprised.
And speaking of Growlithe, it's interesting because he talks about how he is at Fablehaven to die. Like, he has, like,
his glorified tomb
and whatever. Like, it's slowly killing him. Like, he cannot do, like, anything because, I don't know what exactly it is, but, like, he's, like, is basically, like, on the brink of death, but it takes, like, hundreds and thousands of years to actually happen. So he's, like, doing nothing, and he has nothing else to do except watch what goes on in the preserve, and then he saw what Seth did. And it's interesting because Growlithe says that he used to be, like, one of the most feared demons.
I think he said one of the six.
One of the six.
Most feared.
So he went from being, like, super powerful and feared to, like, this pathetic state of, I don't know, agony. And so I think that's interesting, like, more background and, like, the world building and stuff about, like, the demons and, you know, that there's a hierarchy even within the demons and things like that.
We'll dive into that in a couple books.
Yes.
Love that. No, but yeah, it's just such a fun conversation. And it is really kind of interesting to see this, like, being of darkness, of evil, be, like, genuinely grateful.
It is kind of weird.
It is.
Yes.
It's a little trippy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hang on. I don't know what to compare it to. It's just like this demon. He has lived for so long. He's gotten to the point. It's kind of like Lena, almost. Like Lena got to the point where, like, even when she was in her, like, immortal state, Patton was able to get through to her, and she was able to see past her nature.
Okay.
And see, and, like, Growlithe, I feel like at this point has kind of gotten to that. He has lived so long, done so much, and fell so far. He's gotten to the point where he's overlooking his very nature of being a demon, to the point where he is now more neutral. Whereas, and it talks about this a little bit more later when it talks about why humans like Coulter and Tanu can retain their minds, whereas the magical creatures, when they're bitten and turned to darkness, their entire personalities change as well, and their mentality is lost. I like humans have a, like, it talks about how humans are different just because we are not light or dark, and so it is our choices that determine more of who we are.
Yeah, and they talk about that later, like, at the pond as well, about how, like, the nature of, like, magical creatures, and Grandpa talks about this a lot, and I think in other books, too, that magical creatures aren't necessarily evil, but they're light or dark, and each side can do bad or good things. Probably more bad things,
yes.
But, yeah.
I just thought it was interesting. Like, at this point, Growlithe has lived so long, he has outgrown his nature. And I think that is something very human and very mortal. And I think that is because he is facing his own mortality. Like you said, he came to this preserve to die.
Yeah.
Like, he is not expecting to have any glory beyond this. He doesn't have any future aims. He's just, and I mean, I bet a bunch of it is selfish. Like, is a bit selfish. He said, I'm really telling you this just to see if you're surprising me again.
Yeah, it's for his own entertainment in a way.
But a bit of it is genuine gratitude. He said, thank you for surprising me. Thank you for giving me that novelty.
Yeah. Here's
something for you. I think it's a bit different from, like, the dragons who, like, if a dragon tamer can withstand their gaze, they are not just like pleasantly surprised, like, ooh, this mouse knows a fun trick. It's
yeah, like Shalice.
Yes. It seems more genuine than that. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Interesting. Something else interesting, I think, is that he mentions that, like, it's like foreshadowing for, like, the next couple chapters, is that Growlithe says there's only 2 places on the preserve that are safe from the dark creatures. The place where the centaurs live, and then the pond where the fairy queen shrine is. And then Seth is like, and the house, right? And he's like,
Sure.
Sure, if you want to say that. And that's kind of like foreshadowing later.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, not really. And so, like yeah.
It really had that feeling of, like, you know, in the movies, like, yeah, and we'll be safe there, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Or it's just like, yeah, you can think that. Like,
It's cute.
not really, but
it's cute. You think that.
Exactly. So I thought that was, like, interesting, just kind of like foreshadowing for the later chapters, which we read, so we can talk about that.
Yes. Indeed. So yeah, next one's Homecoming, which is basically Kendra and Warren leaving Lost Mesa.
Yeah.
And I do love the confirmation. Yes, Neil was a skinwalker. Love that. I know we talked about it last episode, but just one more little shout out.
Not a creepy one. Thankfully.
There's various types. But
Let's
that's
not talk about that, please.
Okay, now's not the time to get into it. Just wanted to say I liked the confirmation. So yeah, they're like, they go back to the main house. They go back to the main house, licking their wounds a bit. I mean, they literally have a corpse in the back of the truck.
Yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah.
They, like, the one thing is that, like, the mesa gave them, like, a nice little pathway to go down to get off the mesa.
It's
it was
like, now
here,
that we've given you all this trauma, here, we'll let you leave.
I made you rock climb in the pouring rain and up a waterfall and then get attacked. Here's this nice little switchback trail that you could just go down to get out of here.
And, like, Kendra even mentions, like, the beauty of the view. And they mentioned that, like, when they were trying to find a way up.
Yeah.
That, like, getting down was always easier than getting up.
The mesa always, like,
it
get out of
just
here.
repels any visitors.
It wants them to leave, yeah. And they talk about how, well, Kendra talks about, in her mind, I guess, I don't know, that, like, they don't tell Dugan or Gavin about the inscription that she saw about the artifact being in Fablehaven.
Courtesy of the world's greatest adventurer.
And so they decide that they're still not sure if the traitor to the society has been flushed out yet. And so they decide to take, like, a chalice and pretend that that was the artifact that they were looking for, just to see if anything happens. And so they go back to the house, and then they have to break the news that Neil is dead, which is really sad. And then, so yeah.
Honestly, the saddest part is that Kendra is, like, one of the only ones who has, like, a very emotional reaction. Like, even Rosa and Hal and Mara, very stoic, very understanding. And it's like, I think it really just kind of reveals how new Kendra still is to this world.
Rosa does cry, though.
She does. But I mean, like, even, like, within, like, a few hours when Kendra wakes back up, she is pretty much she has resolved it. And
I feel like that's her, like, putting on, like, a face for the guests.
That's true. But it really just it really just emphasizes Kendra's youth.
Yes.
And her newness to the world.
Yeah.
Like, they still have only been aware of Fablehaven's existence for maybe a year at this point.
Exactly.
They've just barely been introduced into this world, and
Kendra's not known anyone that's died yet.
Yes.
This is the first time she's ever known someone in the world of the preserves, and then they died.
And I think that's just, like, it really hits her, like, later on in this section, but, like, even just seeing, like, Warren is able to kind of steel himself and just focus on the mission, Dugan, Gavin, and then we have the reactions to the people who were close to Neil. Yeah. And, like, they mourn, but then afterwards they are able to just, like, these things happen. Like, it's a part of this world, and, like, that's just something that, like you said, Kendra has not been exposed to yet. And, yeah, you take a 14-year-old through 2 death traps, like the first vault and now this one, she's going to walk away with some trauma. And I like that it's addressed.
I guess what's-his-face did die in the second book. Christopher Vogel.
we didn't care about him.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is like the first person she actually like cared about, or was like a friend. And so I feel like this kind of shows her the reality, and that she's been told that the preserves are dangerous, but it's one thing to hear about it other than to actually experience it. And so she experienced it firsthand. I think that does shake her up a bit.
Mm-hmm. And that really colors the rest of her perspectives in this section.
Yeah.
Like she has a couple of nightmares, and she rightly attributes them to the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And even later, once they get back to Fablehaven so just quick.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah, I'll talk about. Well, can I just skip ahead just for a second?
Okay.
Like even later, once they get back to Fablehaven, like Seth has been Seth about kind of like her getting to see a dragon and go through another vault. But even after that, Seth kind of sobers up like that night, and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry about like everything that happened," because he understands that it was a very traumatic experience.
Yeah. They think they told him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he knows that like stuff went down and it wasn't all fun and games. Like he'd kind of been treating it as beforehand.
Yeah.
And he actually says like, "I'm glad I wasn't there when that happened," and Kendra says, "I am too." Like, dang, these kids are going through it right now. Like, that part really hit me. Like, that was a very good sibling interaction. Like, Seth sobers up, and you can tell he's kind of uncomfortable, like a little awkward, but like, he's sincere and honest. He understands that Kendra is hurting, and he tries to be there for her, and he does a good job. Good brother. Good job, Seth.
Sorry, I throat. Yeah, you can see, like, how their time on these preserves are starting to change them, and, like, how they think and how they feel, because their experience is more, and they're getting deeper into the world of Fablehaven of the preserves, and, they have to take it more seriously than maybe they did before.
Mm-hmm. Like, Kendra is becoming, I think, a bit less... I mean, she is still kind of, like, not great in a fight, but she is...
Ever?
True.
Sorry, Kendra. Ooh.
Ouch! Woo! Shots fired. No, but yeah, like Kendra is, I think, becoming a bit more scarred and like
she's got some battles.
She's got some battle wounds now, and it's like some experiences. And Seth is becoming a bit less reckless and more responsible, and more. And so they're both growing, and I think they're both growing together as well.
Yeah, I feel like what you just said made me think, like, they're kind of getting the experience that they need to grow in the way that they need. Because Seth is already always down for, like, action and adventure, but he doesn't do well, or at least in the past hasn't done well to, like, stop and think and do things like research and, like, think things through and, like, think out, like, the different possibilities. He's more like, let's just go and do it. While Kendra is more prone to, like, thinking things out. And, like, we even see that in, like, the first book, how she figures out the keyholes and everything. And now she is part of the Knights of the Dawn, is immediately sent on a mission and having to, like, do things and, like, take action. And so I feel like they're getting their chances to each separately get more experience in where they, like, kind of lack.
Mm-hmm. However, we did skip over some stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, going back to Lost Mesa really quick. Sorry, yeah. I just wanted to make sure I covered that before I forgot.
Yeah, no, you're good. So they get back. Kendra goes to her room,
passes out.
Cries it out, release of emotions and trauma and everything.
Needed.
Takes the nap.
That is her thing. After she does something strenuous, she goes and takes a nap. And honestly, I'm here for it, girl. Me too.
That's a good thing to do.
Me too.
And so she wakes up and she goes and finds Warren, and he's like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you to wake up. I think that before we leave, we need to talk to Dugan and tell him about our suspicions about the Sphinx, because he thinks that other people in the Knights who are high up, like Dugan, because he's a lieutenant, should know these things about the Sphinx." And so they go and meet with Dugan, and they tell him that they're like, first of all, did you know about the things early in the summer that happened at Fablehaven and how the Sphinx has an artifact? And he's like, no, I didn't know that. And that's, red flag right there. And so
and Warren... they never explicitly say it, I don't think. Like, they never explicitly say that the Sphinx was implicated as a traitor Do they?
I don't think so.
Not that
No, they don't mention the traitor thing.
They don't mention it. They never explicitly say anything.
I don't think so.
But they lay out all the facts that they have, and they say, do with this what you will.
Mm-hmm.
There is an undercurrent of suspicion, and Dugan is feeling those own suspicions because of the fact that, like, I wasn't told about any of this. And as a lieutenant, he is high enough up that he's like, maybe I should have known about this.
Yeah.
But, especially, like, this, he is... And so I really love that Warren is like, I'm not going to make you think anything. I'm just going to give you all this information and let you do with it as you will.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not going to say he was implicated by a Blix.
Yeah.
Because that's going to ruin their credibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not saying that they have information that he might be a traitor, but they're saying, like, you understand the implications about if the Sphinx was a traitor and had access to multiple artifacts, like what that would mean. And so Dugan's like, yes, I understand. And he says that, like, this is how the Knights have traditionally, like, policed themselves by, like, not having one person have all the power and having, like...
Nobody's above suspicion.
Nobody's above suspicion, but he also is like, yeah, we can't go around spreading rumors and, like, causing dissension and distrust among all the Knights just in case he's not a traitor. But I do like that Dugan kind of, like, takes it, and he doesn't immediately, like, not believe them. Like, he's like, okay, yeah, I will keep that in mind.
And I will do my own research.
Yeah.
I will talk to my sources, confer with the other lieutenants. Thank you. And I really appreciate the trust, because I feel like this is, like, the almost exact opposite of what we were getting when we had the Knights meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Knights meeting was all about secrecy, all about, like, isolating each individual member by not letting them know who was around them. Whereas now, we have Warren saying, nope, I don't trust it. I'm just going to come straight forward and say, this is what we know.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we know. Make your own inferences and then get back to us. And Dugan says, I will. And
Dugan's also like, oh, so that's why you were, like, hounding me about the identity of the captain at the meeting. He's
and
like,
also
okay, that makes sense.
And also looking after extra preserves.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. He's like, pieces are starting to fall into place.
And Dugan also says that they also only know 4 out of the 5 secret preserves, that no one else knows where the 5th one is. And so they're like, well, that's still another mystery.
And honestly, that's a genius way to keep the secret. Because, like, I mean, Dugan even straight up said, like, we always figured that if we said we're going to pool all of our resources, pool all of our knowledge,
yeah,
we'll know where all 5 are. But no. They're, like, figuring out that even among all of these elite spies, hunters, and all of these, like, people
everyone
in this world, nobody knows where that 5th one is. They only know Connecticut, Arizona, Australia, Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, but then where's the 5th?
Yeah.
And I just really like that they point that out. Like, wait a sec. Like, what better way to keep the secret then?
Yeah.
To make sure that one is always a secret.
But then you have another side which makes them question, does the society know? And they don't know? And then that's just, a big question that you're like, oh, crap, if they know, that's not good. But if they don't know, and we don't know, that's actually better.
That you know, that we know, that you don't know, that we know, that you could know. Do you know?
No.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
Anyway.
So yeah,
they have that conversation, and then Kendra goes to sleep and wakes up at, like, the crack of dawn, and she's like, goes out, and she's like, where is everybody? Usually I'm not the first one up. But then she runs into Gavin and finds out mischief has happened during the night.
Can I just say mischief that always had a funny stink to me? Okay, so basically what happens is Gavin's informing Kendra that everybody's out looking for Javier, who was one of the 3 original knights sent to help out with retrieving the artifact.
Yeah.
And who had lost an entire leg and, like, from his knee down on the other leg from
the dragon.
From Shalice.
Yeah.
And had to been pushed around in a wheelchair this entire visit. apparently, what comes to, so they presented the chalice as their prize, as like, oh, we found the artifact,
Mm-hmm.
and the next morning the strongbox is gone, tires are slashed, and Javier is gone as well.
Yeah.
So like, well, there's our crook,
There's our traitor.
which always had such a funny stink to me.
Because he doesn't have legs.
Because he doesn't have legs!
I know.
How is this man supposed to be slashing tires?
I mean, he has arms. He can slash tires. I don't know how he would drive a car,
like, driving
though.
a car? Like, he apparently he drove the Jeep all the way over to the gate, which I think was like a 30-minute drive in the dead of night. I don't buy it.
I know people who are paralyzed, who like maybe
Very,
are
very
amputees.
capable.
They're very capable. We're not saying anything about that.
But he also lost his legs like maybe 2
But
weeks ago.
like, yes, in the context of this book, Javier, who lost his legs just a couple months ago, I don't know if he would be capable of driving a car.
And doing everything.
But they did say maybe he had an accomplice outside.
But he wouldn't have been able to let them in.
I know.
So he would have had to do everything inside. He would have had to sneak around, get the strongbox, which was probably locked away, like in Dugan's room or something.
Yeah.
Do that quietly without alerting Dugan at all. Sneak out. How is he maneuvering with a strongbox? Like if there's steps, which there usually are in haciendas.
Yeah.
Like he's not getting down those.
But
with
like
a
the thing
wheelchair.
is,
Did he use his potion again and make himself lighter and float down?
the thing is that like they have no other explanation.
Yes.
Like
That's true.
everyone else is there except Javier. The thing is gone. The tires are slashed.
And that's true.
And so they have nothing else to go on. And
It always smelled.
It must
a
have been
little
Javier.
funky. It always smelled a little funky to me.
But it must have been
But
Javier.
it must have been. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm just saying something smells fishy, and we're in the desert, so it definitely ain't natural.
Definitely ate the fish. Oh, that was good. I was expecting that.
So yeah, they go back to Fablehaven.
Mm-hmm. They make their flight, you know. They
Hope
get
so.
there. And Seth, before they get back, has been engaging in something he basically swore he would never do.
A perilous activity, highly addictive.
It really leads you down a rabbit hole. Reading. He's like, that's only for nerds.
I
And then
felt
when
so
Kendra's
called out.
gone, he's like, maybe this would be helpful. And so he's been reading Patton's journals.
As he swore he would never do to
Yeah.
Kendra at the beginning of this book.
Uh-huh.
I just find it funny. He's reading about Kurisak, as he should. Finds some good information.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as he hears that Kendra's nearby, he shuts the book, puts it away, and tries to make sure it doesn't look like it's been disturbed at all, because he knows that she'll never let him live it down.
Yeah, like he hears someone come up the stairs. He's like, oh, crap. And he scrambles and puts it all away. And then Dell is like, oh, they're back. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah. Trying to act all natural.
Me trying to hide my book from my mom at night. Same energy. Same
real, though.
energy.
And Seth's like, what? Reading? I wasn't reading. What are you talking about?
And the fact that later when it comes up, because they're all sharing their stories,
Yeah.
everything about what's happening in Fablehaven, what's been happening at Lost Mesa, and they're talking about Kurisak, and Seth's like, so, I was playing around in the nursery, and I think I knocked against a table, and one of the journals just fell open on the floor on a passage about Kurisak, the demon. Really interesting information. I skimmed it really quick. It said this, talked about Patton's observations on Kurisak. And it's glanced over in conversation, but later on, Kendra has a golden conversation. And and the best part is that Grandma and Grandpa joined in.
That's
and
so
they
true.
don't
Yeah.
hold back.
It's so funny because she's like, Seth, I'm having a hard time picturing a game where you accidentally knock down a book and it just happens to fall open to a page that talks about Kurisak. How would that ever happen?
And the fact is, it's because he's been needling her about Gavin.
Yes. So the
he's
next morning
been
when they're at breakfast.
He's teasing her because of her crush on Gavin. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
And Kendra's like, oh, you want to play? Let's play.
It's so funny. They're eating pancakes at breakfast, and she's like, "Oh, I'm full," and he's like, "Oh, I'll eat yours," and then
No,
he's like,
You're watching your figure.
I'm not watching my figure for Gavin. I can eat more pancakes because I'm not trying to look good for Gavin.
Yeah, you're just storing up fat so you can read the little bookworm.
Yeah. And then they totally get him about reading, and then he like stomps out of the room, and
Like,
and
he's
Grandpa
actually like really
he's
like,
mad
self-conscious about it.
Yeah, and he's also just like annoyed. He's like, oh, you know what? Whatever. But wait, I think we skipped some stuff.
No, I know we did, but we gotta finish this real quick.
Okay.
And like Seth, like he gets very like defensive, and he's like, "It was an emergency reading." I love
Okay.
this. If I were starving, I would eat asparagus. If someone held a gun to my head, I would watch a soap opera. And to save Fablehaven, I would read a book. Okay, are you happy?
He's like, okay, shoot me, whatever, yeah.
And then Grandma jumps in. You had best be careful, Seth. The love of reading can be very contagious. And like Kendra's like, oh, you know what? I can help you get a library card, add some variety. And Seth, like Megan said, he just storms out.
And then Grandpa
comes in.
like,
What's wrong with Seth? Grandma, Kendra accused him of voluntarily reading. Grandpa raised his eyebrows. Should I telephone the authorities? Like, he doesn't hesitate. The boy isn't even in the room to defend himself. And Grandpa just jumps on the bandwagon.
Sarcasm runs in this family for sure.
And then one more gem from Grandma. I'll not have my grandson subjected to the humiliation of his reading habit becoming public. We have to cope with this disgrace discreetly.
And then Kendra's like, I have an idea, Grandpa. And then he says, board up the windows so the paparazzi won't catch him in the act. And then Kendra's like, no, a real idea.
Like, about family. But
like, I'm getting serious again, but...
I can just imagine how much fun Brandon had writing this. Yeah. Like it's been so dark and depressing. Like, we had death and, like a bunch of loss in the past few chapters. And he's like, nah, I need to stretch my funny bone a little bit.
It's so funny.
It's hysterical.
This whole interaction is just so great. And it just starts with, like, Seth being, like, an annoying little brother teasing, and then Kendra's like, oh, I can dish it back to you. And then Grandma and Grandpa join in.
Yeah, if you can't, like, she's like, if you can't, don't dish it out if you can't take it.
Yep, exactly. It's so funny. So, even before that, when Kendra gets back, she's talking about, well, Seth is still being like, you got to go to another preserve on an adventure. And she's like, oh, yeah, I fed zombies. And he's like, you fed zombies? You probably didn't even enjoy it. Like, it's so unfair that you would get to do things that you wouldn't even enjoy. And she's like, yeah, I did not enjoy it.
And I love Grandpa's comment right there, too. He's like trying to remind Seth, like, hey, he did something cool. You conversed with a powerful demon. And Seth's like, she's not going to care about that. That's not going to make her jealous. Exactly. Like, she'd only care if I'd ridden a unicorn or something.
Well, ballerinas sing love songs. And then Kendra's like, don't pin your dreams on me.
Kendra's been a savage this book,
They're
honestly.
Like, it's so fantastic.
Like, she has just upped it in, like, maybe it's just, like, she's, like, 14. Like, she's really stepping into that savage sister mode.
She's got the sassiness on her.
Savage sassiness.
And then she's also like, oh, we also saw a dragon. He's like, a dragon? And then she's like, oh, but she was just kind of little. And he's like, oh, it was a girl dragon. I'm like, whoa, Seth. Sexist. Just because it's a girl dragon. Just kidding.
Also, it did also eat a person and nearly mauled another one.
Yeah. I'm not watching my figure. I just can't get that. The audiobook is just running through my mind.
What was it?
I'm not watching my figure for Gavin. Just the way that the narrator says it.
And then later on, when they're still sharing more stuff, like Seth gets her back a little bit. Yeah, Vanessa gave us some hints. Kendra, you spoke with Vanessa?
Oh, yeah.
Twice, Seth says smugly.
He finally found something that she's jealous of.
Oh, man. So, yeah, they share that, like, they have a suspect. They're pretty sure they know now how the plague started.
Yeah.
And Kendra and Warren share that, haha, surprise, surprise, there's another artifact here at Fablehaven. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, crap, where could it be?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, guess we gotta go talk to the only person who still alive who knew Patton.
Lena. Back to Lena.
Yeah. But before that, well, first off, we find out that we have a deadline for when the kids have to go back to their parents.
Oh, yeah. They have.
But that's not really important.
Yeah. Like less than a week.
Mm-hmm.
because they're talking like late Friday night, early Saturday, and they're like, oh, your parents are coming on Thursday, so they have like 5-6 days before they absolutely like, you know, have to have this whole thing figured out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
No pressure.
no pressure whatsoever.
Also, when did at one point like while they're brainstorming, Seth is like, oh yeah, and I need to help out. Like Raoula said I'm the one who needs to stop Kurisak. And Grandpa's like, no, for that precise reason that Raoula's being interested in you, you should not be helping at all. And Warren's just joking around, maybe we better lock him in the quiet box.
Yeah.
And Grandma's go like, so help me, I'll take him up on that, Seth.
So funny.
And also later on, like when like they talk about like the deadline for going home, Seth's like, if it means getting out of school, maybe we should lock Mom and Dad in the dungeon. And then Grandpa sighs, saying, we'll do what we must, not seeming to take the comment quite as jokingly as Seth had intended. Like, Grandpa,
Yeah.
what are you planning
I
in
know,
there?
he was like, you know, maybe we should. It's like, whoa, okay.
Like, those are your children?
Like,
That is
Seth
your-
meant it as a joke.
That is your daughter and... No, that is
Your
your daughter-in-law
son.
and your son.
And daughter, yeah.
It is son,
It's like, well,
it's son and
it's
daughter-in-law.
his son and daughter-in-law, yeah.
I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, wait.
I don't even know their first names.
Oof. Awkward.
Do you?
No.
No. They're not really, I mean, they are characters, but they're very, very minor characters.
And they never interact with anybody else, really, so...
No.
Maybe is one of them Helen? Is Mom Helen?
I don't know.
I feel like it's mentioned at least once or twice.
There's a trivia question for you. What are the names of Gundra
Put it in the
and Seth's
comments
parents?
or in an email, because we are clearly blanking. I guess we could look it
I
up on
literally-
like, Wiki or something. It's not worth it right now.
I'll look that up later. Anyway, moving on. Next chapter. This is one of my favorite chapters. It's called Brownie.
You've been talking for like this entire book about how excited you were for this chapter.
Because it's a fun chapter. We already got into part of it. The first part is the next morning, where they're eating pancakes at breakfast, and Seth starts, you know, poking at Kendra, and Kendra's poking back, and then Seth stomps off.
And then the end of that is that nice tender moment between them when Seth is like, hey, I'm sorry that you had to watch that
Yeah.
and those people died.
Yeah.
Like that
Well,
nice
also,
moment.
another funny part at breakfast, not to, you know, make light of what you just said, but when Grandpa's like, ooh, do I see extra pancakes?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
Grandma's like, you already had some. And he's like,
3 hours
3
ago."
hours ago. And then Warren's like, more pancakes?
He comes in a second later, yeah.
And Grandpa's like, well, I'm not going to, like, waste these. They're just leftovers.
No, I just love that Grandpa's literally just like, nope, mine. They're mine. And then Warren's like, fine, I won't be bitter as I go off and venture into the
Yeah.
darkness of the preserve, risking being turned into a shadow or killed and mauled or turned into stone. And
My one
I
last
promise
wish.
I will not present you for denying my last wish of having some more ample pancakes.
And Grandpa's
Fine.
like, fine, I'll share. Yeah, Warren's like, I'm going out into danger.
Into
It's just
the-
like so.
No!
I can just imagine this being so like fake dramatic, being like, oh, I wish
Off I
that
go.
my one last desire, if I die, would have
Could
been
have been
fulfilled
fulfilled.
of more apple pancakes.
Is that one of the recipes in the book?
I think
the
so.
cookbook,
Yeah,
apple
I'm pretty
pancakes?
sure.
I wanna
If
say
it's
it
not, it
is.
has to be.
That makes we need to try those out sometime.
Yeah. By the way, yeah, for those who didn't know, Brandon Mole came out with a cookbook full of Fablehaven recipes, and it's really cool. So if you haven't checked that out, go look it up. Me
Yeah.
and Jessica both got copies. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Really fun themed things.
With little like notes from the characters.
Yeah. We can do a video talking
Yeah.
about that if you guys want, talking about the cookbook, because it's really cool.
It is. It's a fun little thing. And honestly, we're thinking about maybe eventually doing a video
Yeah.
where we make one of the treats contained within. If you guys want that or are in
If you
favor
wanna
of that
see that.
option, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. The more we get, the more motivated we are to do this.
No promise that we'll actually show our faces, but
Our hands, maybe.
It could be like one of those tasty videos, like, add 2 tablespoons. You just see the bowl and the hand putting it in.
I feel like we might get copyrighted for that, though. Just because, like, the recipes are owned and, like, they're in a cookbook, they're published.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Anyway, so then we go from morning breakfast to that night. Kendra and Seth are in their room, kind of talking, and they're both reading. And it's funny because Seth is, like, skimming, trying to go super fast, trying to look for any information that he can at all. And then Kendra's, like, meticulously, like, going through the pages, like,
reading every word.
Reading everything. And then Kendra's like, I don't know how you could read anything. You're going so fast, you're going to miss it. And he's like, I don't know how you find anything going so slow. Like,
you're not even get to through half the book by the time we're going to be dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, me while reading a textbook versus me reading a fun book for pleasure. You guys get to decide which one's which.
Yeah. So, yeah. They eventually stop reading. So, like, well, we're not going to find anything else tonight. So they turn off the light and they go to bed. And then they are awoken by a voice coming out of the heavens, basically.
God?
And it's actually Grandpa. Grandpa Sorensen is speaking to them from the other side of the attic. And
if it was Warren, I'd say an angel.
Oh my gosh. Anyway.
Or Patton, I guess.
Okay, so Grandpa says, Kendra, Seth, this is your grandfather. The voice said, it did sound like Grandpa, only magnified. I'm speaking from the secret attic where Dale, Warren, your grandmother, and I have taken refuge. The brownies have become infected and have turned against us. Do not open your door until we come for you in the morning. Without adults in your room, you will be totally safe from harm. We expect to pass the night without incident here as well. Seth stared at Kendra, not quite into her eyes. She realized that he could not see her as distinctly as she could see him.
Very good powers.
Very good detail. And says that Grandpa repeated the message 2 more times. On the 3rd time, he added more at the end. The brownies are only permitted in the house from sunset to sunrise, so we'll evacuate in the morning. We're sorry we didn't see this coming. The brownies are an insular community, virtually never in contact with the other creatures at Fablehaven. Their habitations beneath the yard enjoy many of the same protections as its house. Even so, we should have known the plague would find a way. Life finds a way. Sorry to disturb you. Try to get some sleep. Yeah, right, Seth said, switching on the bedside lamp. Just what we needed, Kendra sighed. Evil brownies. I wonder what they look like. Don't even consider peeking. I know, of course not. It's so funny. When Grandpa's like, try to get some sleep. So it's like, yeah, right, that's like, not going to happen.
And I just love Kendra's reaction. Like, it says, like, I wonder what they look like. And so
like,
Kendra's like, don't even think about it.
We're not doing this again.
This is where the maturity comes in.
Yeah.
He knows now the difference between being stupid and being smart.
Mm-hmm.
That, opening the door to check and see what the brownies look like, very stupid.
And he also goes over to the window, and he sees Tanu as a shadow out there, and he's like, no, don't open the window. And he sees some dark fairies, and so they figure out that, like, if they weren't going to get changed by the brownies, if they try to go out the window, they get changed by the dark fairies. Mm-hmm. So they're trapped.
A very, very impressive trap. Because, I mean, if your house is being taken over, what are you going to do? Like, if your house is on fire and you're in the attic, what are you going to do? You're going to go out the window and drop down to the ground.
Yeah.
That's basically what they were trying to do, is flush them out so they can get them.
There's another part that I think is really funny. Hold on, let me find it. Oh, yeah. Seth put his ear against the door. I can't hear anything. There are probably 10 of them patiently waiting on the far side, ready to pounce. Brownies are shrimps. All I need are some heavy boots, a pair of shin guards, and a weed whacker.
But the image made Kendra giggle. That's one thing I love. Like, he was joking around, lightening the mood, making Kendra laugh a bit.
Coping,
true. But I feel like that was partially intentional. Like, he wasn't actually planning on doing that.
Oh, no.
But he just wanted to cheer up Kendra. Like, that's what he said, that he's the bravest, is the one he has Kendra there to protect.
It's also just part of his nature, you know? Just, like, joke around. He's a jokester.
Like
It's
every male
the
in this family.
The Sorensen /
Burgess
Burgess gene
gene.
of sarcasm and recklessness. It's a dangerous combination.
Indeed. Really, let's be honest. Grandma and Grandpa screwed them over. Like the combination of the Burgess line and the Sorensen line. These kids never had a chance.
The ultimate power, I think you mean.
Snarkiness.
And recklessness come together. And they form Seth. Not really Kendra as much, but Seth.
Kendra got Grandma's sassiness.
Seth gets the male gene of the Burgess line, even though it goes to Grandma. Anyway.
Wait. Oh, wait, no, it's an uncle. I was about to say, wait, is Lena Grandma's grandmother? But no, I think it's her great-great-aunt.
We still need to ask him if they ever had... They didn't
yeah.
have kids, though, because I feel like we would know. But, like, would we?
But would we?
But would we?
But would we?
There you go, Brandon. If you're looking for a reason to write Patton Burgess's
Autobiography?
series,
That
make
too.
him have a kid.
That would be so cute.
I want them to have children.
No, but yeah, so in that case, Lena is, like, Grandma's second or third aunt.
Well, I
great
don't
aunt.
think it's actually, like, that Patton's her, like, grandfather. I think it's more
Yeah,
like it's
I
her
think-
great uncle. So
That's
it's
what I'm
like
saying.
she's
So,
related to... well,
Lena
yeah,
is Grandma's great aunt.
something like that.
And also, if...
I need the family tree in front of me to, like,
yeah,
think
I
about
do
this
too.
through.
Like,
but
how many brothers did Patton have? Like, what did the family... Because a bunch of people...
we know he had an uncle. I don't know.
So wait, is Warren directly descended then?
That's the thing. I don't
Is
know.
Warren Lena's grandkid?
I don't think so. This is another reason why I think Brandon Mills should write the series.
Just give me
I'm
a family
confused
tree.
about the family tree. I need to actually look at this and be like, wait, what does
in
he
order for them all
reference
to
them
be
as?
cousins, like,
Because yeah, they
Warren
all have
and
to
Dale
be.
are second cousins.
And Warren still has. He's Warren Burgess, so he still has the surname, and so he would have to be.
And
well,
that was Ruth.
Okay,
That was
this is
Grandma's
my
surname, like
okay.
maiden name, wasn't
Fun
it?
fact:
Ruth.
I am a genealogist, and for them to be second cousins, they have to have the same great grandparents.
Is that what they are? It was second cousins, or is it?
That's
third
what
or
I
fourth?
thought. I thought they said second cousins.
I think it's like in the first or second book when they're like Dale, he's a cousin.
I think it's second cousins. If it's third, second
They
great
are
grandparents.
my cousins.
Anyway, so if they're second cousins, what I think is that their great grandparents, the Burgess probably, is a brother of Patton. That's what I would guess. So that would make Patton both of their great uncle, or like great uncle,
So
whatever
there's
you
a
want to
Burgess
say,
brother.
grand uncle. So it's probably Patton's brother that they're descended from directly, but they're still related to Patton. So he's probably like a great granduncle.
Yeah.
Or however, I always get confused.
It still
when I
makes
say
it
that.
weird with having Lena be like your great aunt. Like just
You're more like my great
Are you finished?
great aunt.
Quality movie. How many times have we quoted that in these things? Goodness.
A lot today, actually. Anyway, I would love to see a family tree on the Burgesses.
Please and thank you.
That would actually help a lot.
Okay, and also, so they finally managed to get back in bed after they've like confirmed that we're screwed.
Yeah.
And
I think they do get a little bit of sleep.
they do, but
I think
it's right before that when like, all right, let's just go to bed, pretend it's a regular night. And Seth's like, okay, we'll try. And Kendra goes, good night, Seth. Don't let the brownies bite. I mean, come on, Seth, I can try.
And then Seth, I think, says that like, he like kept like waking up. You know, like when like you're about to fall asleep and you kind of like jerk awake. He's like kept doing that because you know,
starting
the thought of the dark creatures in the house. You know,
a lot closer to home.
This is kind of, you know, deja vu almost of the first book.
Yeah.
But everyone else got to safety before anything bad happened. So, it's because Warren's there. Just kidding. You know, you think Warren would have made a difference in the first book if he had been there?
100%.
I think he would too.
Like he probably would have snuck up to the attic and like let Seth had like he would have like let Seth had a peek because he understood the reckless nature, and he probably would have said, "No, hang on.
That's true, actually.
Like, he would have probably tried to get through to Seth beforehand and be like, hey.
I agree.
This is serious. Maybe give them a glimpse as they're coming into the yard right off the bat. And then send them upstairs.
That's so true. Warren definitely would have been like, I'll let you take a peek. But, like, for good reasons. But also because Seth is Warren and Seth are Patton and everything. So, like, they have the same, he knows thought processes.
Like,
they're
seriously.
just constantly reincarnations of Patton. Basically. So, yeah, anyway, sorry. That was interesting, though. We can talk about that more.
Yeah.
That was interesting. How would it be different with Warren? But, so yeah, they wake up and they hear someone on the stairs and it's Warren and he's like, don't open the door. There are booby traps.
And also, it's kind of, also, when they hear, like, the stairs creaking and Seth says, who's there? I had a little bit of a flashback to book one. Like, when they were having, like, all the false voices.
Yeah.
And, like, they couldn't be sure.
That's true.
Like, this time, like direct sunlight hits, and so they know we're good. But, like, I just had, like, a little bit of, like, there's a little trauma there. Like, Seth being like, hang on, we gotta be careful. Who is it?
A Taylor Swift lyric just came into my mind. I think I've seen this film before. And I didn't like the ending. That kind of fits. Thanks, Taylor.
This ending's different.
Yeah.
So Warren's like, yeah, so there's like 3 crossbows pointed at your door right now.
There's a shotgun.
And a bunch of stuff. So just yank the door open and stay out of the way.
Yeah.
They do so. 3 arrows fly in. They're like,
Like, all right.
I love the illustration that we
Oh,
get
yeah.
in the
This
hallway.
is so awesome that he actually illustrated. There's just, like, tripwires going everywhere, a bunch of
Axes.
swords, crossbows, an axe, pulleys,
a
bear trap.
Wait, where's the bear trap? I see it.
Right down in the left side corner. The down left side corner.
Like, yeah, it has, like...
Yeah, a mace. Oh, my gosh.
Like, seriously, they, like... holes have been carved out of the wall in order to make room.
This is a good visualization of, because like the brownies are so amazing and ingenuitive. You would expect it to be this like intricate, yeah. Because Warren says like I was gonna try and disarm them, but they're all like interconnected. I don't know which wire goes where. Yeah, some set off multiple traps. He's like, this is too complicated. Like we don't have time for this. Because the brownies came in and got the register, and so they don't know how much time they have before other dark creatures can enter the house.
And so they're like, we got to get out of here. And
yeah.
Seth comes up with a brilliant idea.
This is the best part. Seth is like, wait, why don't I just shove the rocking horse down the stairs to set off the traps?
And I love Warren being like, yes, do it. Like
Warren's like, that's actually kind of a good idea.
And you also know he wants to see it.
Yes. And then Kendra's like, okay. I'll close the door after you shove down the stairs.
Seth gets it into position and is about to push it down. And Seth's like, wait, why have I never thought of this before? Like, this would have been so much fun. And the quote, like, one of my favorite quotes is, why did fabulous ideas tend to occur to him at the wrong time?
Yeah.
I feel
He's
that's
like,
so hard.
Man, why didn't I try riding this down the stairs before?
Like, I had a full summer to do this last year. Come on, what was I thinking?
Oh.
And so, after, like, they hear all the banging, like, couple shots go off, all that jazz. And Seth's like, that was awesome. Kendra's like, you are psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
And Warren's like, yeah, that was kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, Kendra. It was pretty cool.
I'm a guy.
And then Kendra's like, all boys belong in insane asylums. I think it would be pretty cool, though.
Probably. As long as I was behind bulletproof
glass. As long as you don't actually get hit by a crossbow bolt.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought was incredible, like, a gunshot goes off, blasting a hole through the door, and then a crossbow quarrel.
I noticed that too.
Through the hole.
I know. I've never noticed that before. I was like, oh, that's actually genius.
That is such also accuracy.
Yeah. Like, wow. These brownies, evil brownies, know what they're doing. A little too well.
Honestly. Especially if they came at, like, different angles. Like, maybe the shotgun blows in, like, going at, like, 30 degrees. And then it goes in at, like, 330. So, like, it's still passing the hole, but going at different angles so that if the shotgun didn't get the first one, the crossbow would. I expect nothing less, as you said.
There goes Kendra. Jessica's phone.
Yeah, we're 2 for 2.
And so they get down the stairs without, much trouble because most of the traps got set off. They get to the bottom, and...
Of course, that's just the attic stairs.
Yeah, that's one set of stairs. And then Seth sees a piece of wood, and he's like, wait, is that part of Mendigo? And Warren's like, yeah, the brownies dismantled him and put parts of him all throughout the house. And then Seth is, like, reaching for it, and Warren, like, stops him. And he's like, it's part of a booby trap. Like, do not touch those.
Which is sad. So, no Mendigo for the rest of the book.
Yeah. So, Mendigo is, what's the word? Out of commission, thank you. And then you hear Grandma and Grandpa, and they're like, are you guys okay?
We heard shots.
We heard a big commotion. Like, and they're like, yeah, we pushed the rocking horse down the stairs.
Still alive.
And so it's funny. And they're like, don't come over here. Like, we have lots of traps, too. And so Warren is like, here, I'll guide each of you one by one through the hallway and down the stairs.
Once again, MVP.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Without Warren, I would not be able to do it very well.
It's exactly the same thing he did with the choke pods. Guides them all through. It's like,
yeah.
Dodge, duck, roll.
Stop, go. And so... This is kind of funny because Grandpa's like, oh, I'll go first. And then he's like slowly going down the hallway and Warren's like coaching him. And it's so funny because let's see.
Grandpa made an increasing number of snappy comments as impatient eroded his composure.
I just can imagine Grandpa slowly losing his patience and being like, oh, this is just getting frustrated.
Stressful situation.
He's getting more and more angry and just at the situation. It's so funny.
But yeah, they all make it out. They find out that all of the vehicles have been sabotaged.
Mm-hmm.
So they have really no way out of the preserve except through.
Yeah.
and they don't have any safe havens except for the pond. So, we gotta make a break for it.
Yeah.
And
so they gather some supplies that they can, and then they get in the cart that they have, a hand cart looking thing, and then they have Hugo pull it, and they kind of, make a dash for the pond.
Mm-hmm. And so, basically, who we have on the roster at this point, we have Grandpa and Grandma, Seth and Kendra, Dale and Warren.
Mm-hmm. Siblings, married couple.
3 pairs, how convenient.
Yeah.
But I love this bit because, they make it almost all the way to the pond. They defend themselves from, the fairies with, flash powder that we saw in the first book. Nice callback. Love that. But they get there, and there's 3 dark satyrs guarding the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And Hugo's just ready to plow through them, and genius move from the villains. The 2 of them take a 3rd satyr and launch him up over Hugo and into the cart. Genius move.
That was crazy.
And who's the one who takes them out?
Dale!
I was so surprised. I was like...
He did do something. Sorry.
He did something. I was so
You
proud.
go, Dale. It's his time to shine. He's like, Warren's been doing a lot. It's my turn.
And Warren does something. He, yanks Grandpa out of the way from being tackled or bitten. And Dale he says, I'm going out like a boss. And he just tackles him out of the cart. And he's wrestling this probably 200-pound goat man who can turn into shadow with just a bite.
And he doesn't get bitten, which is the more impressive part to me. So.
And then, hero moment from Hugo. Hugo, without any prompting, shoves the cart through the hole, past the other 2 satyrs. Clothesline to the satyrs.
Oh yeah, he says that they were coming from different sides, and he was it was an umpire calling out, and he
or safe
backhands them, or safe, and he backhands them both at the same time. I think that's so funny.
Instead of flying, and then he just goes, and Dale managed to disengage and reset before Hugo just grabs him and books it.
Yeah,
and I just love right after that, Dale gets Hugo sets Dale on his feet after they all make it back into the pond. Dale looks a little shaken. Then Warren comes up and he's like, "Nice work, big brother." Checks over him, makes sure he's okay, then hugs him.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So there you go, Dale fans. There's some points for Dale in
There's
my
some
book.
good Dale
He just
mo-
went up a couple points
yeah,
in my
that
book.
that was sick. Go Dale.
He did something good. Good job, Dale.
Good job, Dale.
Round of
We
applause.
appreciate you. We don't love you yet, but we appreciate you.
Sorry, I still love your brother more, but you did good.
You did good.
So yeah, they get there, and there it is. The pond and the area around it is full of creatures, and this part's really interesting to me because this is the first time we've like seen
Like
lots
half
of
these,
even mentioned, and like all these creatures together. I think is super interesting because you get to see. Because usually when we encounter creatures, it's like one at a time, like the satyrs, and like one time with like the satyrs and the nipsies, but like we get like satyrs, dwarves, dryads, hamadryads, centaurs, astrids, and like other like ones that like they're like animals,
exotic birds.
Yeah, all these different like magical creatures all gathered in one place. It's really, really interesting.
And of course, that means Seth is in heaven.
Yeah, he's like, they can't get away from me. We're all stuck here together.
I get to interact, and nobody can tell me otherwise, because we're all locked in here. So Grandpa can't even get mad.
Exactly. And so, what does he do? He goes up and he talks to the centaurs. Facepalm.
After literally everybody told him it was a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Including Doran, who he respects.
Doran was like, the centaurs are stuck up and they don't care about anyone except themselves. Do not go talk to them.
Shouldn't have said, he should have said, oh, you should definitely go over there. They have a lot of really great reading facts.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny. And we meet another satyr of Fablehaven.
Oh, gosh.
Verl, who immediately is like hitting on Kendra.
And not just Kendra.
That's true.
Honestly, I think so later on, he kind of imprints on Kendra and just starts like showering her with affection and like he's kind of obsessed with her. But I honestly, like, in this moment, he also does some, like, he ogles some of the hamadryads and the dryads.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because Seth kind of picks up that, like, Verl is, like, kind of, like, a nerdy, satyr, and, like, Newell and Dorn are, like, the cool guys at Fablehaven. So it's kind of, like, a funny dynamic. And that, like, Dorn says that, like, Verl's going, like, a little crazy because all these, like, beautiful dryads and hamadryads are all stuck here with him. And he's, like, girl crazy, basically.
But I honestly think, like, the reason he kind of, like, imprints on Kendra, like, later on where he's, like, only focusing in on her is because she was kind of nice to, like, she didn't, like, reject him outright like all the dryads and hamadryads probably did. She's like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And he's like, oh, pretty ladies giving me time of day.
Yeah.
Love.
It's kind of weird, but, you know, it's not anything, like, bad, so. So, yeah. Grandpa is like, Seth, Warren, and Dale, you set up the tents, and we're gonna go down to the pond to try and talk to Lena. And Seth's like, yeah, I don't want to help set up the tents. So that's when he goes and talks to the centaurs.
I just go talk to cool creatures.
Yeah. So he doesn't really get anywhere with the centaurs, obviously, because they don't give a crap.
But luckily, Kendra and Grandpa have better luck.
Yeah.
I love this scene.
Yeah. They did manage to get, like, a picture of Patton to take with them from the house.
Which was a genius move on Kendra's part.
Yeah, that was super smart. And so she, like, starts asking her about the safe and stuff in the manor. And Lena's like, you know, Patton only told me to, like, ever, like, tell anyone about that in, like, an emergency or whatever. And she kind of is, like, not really saying anything. And then this part is actually kind of funny. Kendra's like, but Fablehaven's in danger. And then Lena's like, again? Like, and I was kind of like, you know, that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Like, Fablehaven's in danger.
Shots fired.
Again? Freaking again? But, yeah. And then when she shows Lena the picture of Patton, that convinces her to, like, to tell them. And I think that's a really beautiful moment. It's just kind of, like, appealing to, like, that part of Lena that was kind of attached to her mortality and attached to Patton and her memory of Patton. And I think that's, like, really cute.
Mm-hmm. I also really loved, like, this line when, like, Kendra does finally bring out the picture, and she's, like, just trying to get that last little nudge to push Lena over the edge to helping them. And, like, Lena, like, it's like it says when she sees the picture, Lena's eyes widen, her face broke the surface of the water, and she mouthed Patton's name. "Don't make us drag you under," warned a voice. "Touch me, and so help me, I'll abandon you," Lena murmured, entranced by the image Kendra held. And I just love, like, even so essentially, like, she murmured it, like, you know that was said with such fierceness, like, oh my gosh, go queen!
And there's, like, another part, because, like, that's her, like, threatening to leave the pond. There's another part that kind of gets me that, like, you kind of see that Lena isn't completely, like, a naiad again when Kendra asks about the bowl for the fairy queen's bowl, and Lena says, you know, it's their most prized possession, but then she says, oh no, like, we, like, she says their, and then she says we, so it's kind of like her saying, like, unconsciously, like, still thinking of herself not as, like, a true naiad.
Yeah, especially, like, later on, like, where as they're about to say goodbye, Kendra says, "Are you happy, Lena?" And Lena responds, "Happy enough. My sisters have striven to rehabilitate me." The glimpse of Patton was thoughtful, although it made old wounds ache.
Yeah.
Like, that old mortality is still a part of her, but it's just, like, she's been in there enough time and, like, been brainwashed to the point where, like, she sees it as a negative thing.
So, yeah. They get the info. They learn that the safe appears once a week for 1 minute, and so that they have to be it's in the old mansion that Seth accidentally stumbled into perchance.
Blink-a-dink.
And it's, like, on, like, the top floor in a bedroom, and it only appears for 1 hour, and she gives them the code.
1 minute.
Yeah. Gives them the code to open it. And so they're like, okay, we have to do this week, obviously, and so they hatch a plan.
Yep. And one thing I always thought was kind of interesting, we can cut this out if it doesn't really fit the vibe, but, like, you know where it says, like, she's giving the combination, Grandpa's writing it down, 32, 22, 31, he said, giving Lena a funny look. His former housekeeper averted her eyes shyly. Why did she do that? Like, why was there shyness there?
I mean, she didn't even, like, talk to Grandpa. I don't think she really talks to mortals, but she feels
like she'll talk to Kendra.
She has, like, enough relationship still with Kendra that she'll talk to Kendra. I feel like that's kind of the vibe.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. Like, that exchange was interesting. We can cut that out.
You're good.
Okay. But yeah. So I love Seth's, like, everybody recognizing Seth. But yeah. So they're ready to head over to, like, the mansion because they're formulating a plan. They're trying to decide who's gonna go. And Seth says, "I'm coming too."
Yeah.
And he gives some very good reasons. And everybody recognizes that Warren's on his side almost immediately.
Warren's like, he makes a good point.
Yeah. So Seth's like, "I've been there before. I know where this room is. I've seen what's inside. And I know a good way to get in. When I was there, I hadn't drunk the milk yet that day. So I was blind, and that afforded me some protections." So, like, okay, we'll follow that plan. He's like, "I can be an extra person. If you fail, I can hang back, and if you fail, I'll come back, and I'll either be backup, or I will return and tell everybody what happened." And, like, he makes enough good points that his extremely overprotective grandparents have to let him go. And I'm like, dang, boy. They're all really starting to recognize your
usefulness,
your maturity, and your capabilities.
Yeah.
I'm like, awesome. Way to go, Seth. Yeah.
I like that Warren, like, sticks up for him a bit because, you know, the past couple books, Grandpa and Grandma are they're so protective of, obviously, their grandchildren because they're their grandchildren and they're so young, but they also have to start to face the fact that, first of all, the grandchildren are the ones who, like, saved everyone, like, Kendra and Seth have continually saved everyone, but also that they're becoming more capable and they have special powers that make them more useful in these situations.
And also, like, there's a reason they're picking these kids to be the heirs of Fablehaven.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, we understand. And also, at this point, there's no way off the preserve, so might as well.
Ride or die.
So,
But they're like, no, Kendra, you can't come because your eyes can't be blinded to magical creatures.
But now the problem, the second, is that even if their eyes are blinded, if Hugo comes out leaving a cart of people inside of it, they're going to get attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Because this pond is completely surrounded by dark creatures who are just waiting for the opportunity to snag somebody who's either seeking asylum or leaving asylum. And so, of course, so they decide to have a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And they round up a bunch of the magical creatures to be a distraction, charge out to provide cover for them to slip through.
Yeah.
And they need the centaurs to lead the distraction because they know how capable they are, that really no dark creature can stand up to them except for a dark centaur.
Yeah, they're faster than any other creature
Mm-hmm.
there.
Strong, great fighters.
Yeah.
Of course, that is a problem because they are all those things. They are very supremacists. They're
very arrogant.
Very arrogant. And they don't believe anything they don't even believe it's worthy of their time.
Yeah, and also when Seth went to talk to them earlier, one of them, so the two of them are named Cloudwing and Broadhoof, and one of them said oh, your grandfather has mismanaged Fablehaven, he shouldn't even be in charge. And so they're just disrespecting, and Seth is already just man, centaurs are jerks,
Yeah. And so they say, okay, probably our best bet, play to their arrogance,
mm-hmm.
flattery, send the kids.
Yeah.
So that was your first mistake, let's be honest. So they send Kendra and Seth over to appeal to their arrogance.
Yeah, and Kendra's remember, Seth, we are here to beg. And she even says we are here to manipulate them and convince them to join us.
And she's like, you have to beg. Don't let them get under your skin.
Yeah.
Just beg, and if they say no, we tried. And Seth's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I can do that. No, you can't!
Can you, Seth? Can you really?
So, immediately they get over there, and they start talking to, the centaurs, and Kendra, playing the part beautifully. She's like, we're playing a distraction, something that will help us retrieve an item that can save Fablehaven, but this distraction is leaderless. It needs you to help them be all that they can be.
Yeah, basically. She's laying it on.
We need you for the American Army. Uncle Kendra.
Oh my gosh.
No, but yeah, so she does a very good thing. And it seems like it almost sways the centaurs for a bit, and then they're like, nah, you guys have already messed up enough. This is just going to be a useless charade. We're not even going to help. And then Seth just goes, that's it.
Yeah, he just kind of blows up after that. And he... Oh, man. It's funny because he starts, ripping into the centaurs, and Kendra repeatedly tries to, pull him away and be like, no.
Literally, physically.
She literally tries to pull him away, and he, will not go. And, yeah, he says some savage things to the centaurs. And he's like... Let's see, one of them is, fine, Seth spat, but I'll be going out there tomorrow. Good luck ignoring the fact that you don't even have the courage of a human boy.
And I love, the fact that the centaurs, they only start listening when they start insulting. And they look at each other. It's did he really just say what he just said?
Mm-hmm.
And they actually do so, okay, we're going to pretend I didn't hear what I just heard. And they give him 2 or 3 chances to take it back.
Yeah.
And instead of doing that, and Seth knows exactly what he's doing. He's prodding, he's provoking, everything. To the point where Broadhoof has been so insulted, which didn't take much, let's be honest.
No, it didn't.
He says, nope, I challenge you to a duel, it is my right to restore my honor. And Seth straight up says, no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dueling you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh.
He's got quite the nerve,
Ah! And also, no survival instincts.
True. Yeah, the Broadhoof gets, so angry that, first of all, he's been insulted by, a little human boy, and that he denied his like, right to a duel, and he said no, and he's just like, the only way that I will forgive you is if you, like, what does he say? There's something like exactly.
Like, for forgiveness?
Yes.
He said, your words are unforgivable, and yet I am not ignorant to the reality that they were spoken in a misguided ploy to gain my assistance. So they're seeing
Yeah, they saw right through.
in counterpoint to the awkward flattery you attempted at first, yeah. For the insolence of denying my challenge, I should strike you down where you stand, but in acknowledgement of the desperate valor behind your words, I will stay my hand for the moment and forget this conversation happened. If you drop to your knees, beg my forgiveness, claim insanity, and declare yourself a craven coward.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Seth hesitated. Kendra elbowed him. He shook his head. No, I won't do that. If I did, I really would be a coward. All I take back is saying my grandfather mismanaged the preserve. You're right that we were pretending to flatter you. And right there, Broadhoof draws his sword.
Yeah, Broadhoof is like, I'm gonna kill this kid, basically. And then Seth says, I have a better idea. If you lead the diversion tomorrow, and I come back alive, I'll duel with you. Then you can satisfy your honor the right way. And then Broadhoof agrees.
This boy.
It's insane.
This boy.
He literally insulted a centaur on purpose.
Multiple times.
Yeah. And just,
with opportunities to renege.
Pushed him to the very edge to where he drew his sword and was, like, about ready to, like, chop his head off.
To smite
stab him, yeah. And Seth manages to, like, get them to agree. And then, finally, when they do that, Kendra's finally able to pull Seth away from the situation. And she's like, are you crazy?
Debatable.
And then Seth's like, oh, I got them to say yes.
And Kendra's like, you what?
And then he's like, I got them to help us. And
you know they were arrogant. You knew they may not help. But you insisted on insulting. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And then Seth's like, but I'm not dead. He said, patting his torso as if he was shocked to find himself intact. You should be, and you probably will be. Not for 2 days.
Don't speak so soon. We haven't told Grandma and Grandpa what happened yet.
Don't tell them, Seth pleaded, suddenly desperate. Things are bad enough. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't tell.
Kendra threw up her hands. Now you beg! That's like one of my favorite parts.
I know.
She's like, now of all times, now you really...
Now you know how to beg. So yeah, he got them to agree, but, you know, at the peril of his own life, because now he's agreed to a duel with Broadhoof.
A centaur.
Yep. But he has to survive the manor first, so Seth's just convinced the centaurs into leading the charge the next morning for the distraction.
Yeah.
In his own Seth way.
In the most Seth way, let's be honest.
The most Seth way. That's
so yeah,
true.
we got the centaurs, and now the plan is underway.
Mm-hmm.
And good golly, this is actually, like, I am very impressed with all the creatures. Like, they know what they're sacrificing here, and they know that not all of them are going to make it, especially, like, the fairies. Like, nobody else can really help them.
That's true. Yeah, they just have to charge out.
Like, the satyrs, like, they can work together, they can see each other coming, but, like, the fairies, it's one-on-one. Like, they can't really get backup from the other creatures the way that the dryads, hamadryads, and the satyrs, and even the centaurs can.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no backup for the fairies. Just thought about that.
They're being not selfish for once.
Mm-hmm. Mostly because they're scared, but you know.
Yeah. So we get that first part from Kendra's point of view. She's watching from the gazebo as all, like, the creatures line up at the opening in the hedge, and then Hugo with the cart, and they say that everyone is, like, underneath, like, a collapsed tent or, like, tarp or whatever in the cart, so it doesn't look like anyone's with Hugo. So, like, that's the master plan, you know, sneak out under the cover of the distraction of everyone running out.
Yeah, and then we have it gives us, like, some numbers. 20 satyrs make a run for it after the centaurs, a couple hamadryads, and I love Kendra's little side note, like, because, like, the joke has been that the satyrs have been, like, chasing the hamadryads and the dryads and, like, trying to pursue them. And Kendra, when she's watching the nymphs just run, like, beautifully and, like, super fast, she's like, no smitten satyr would ever chase down a hamadryad who did not wish to be caught.
Yeah, I do love that visual. It's just like, they only let the satyrs catch them if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty great.
And,
Sorry, that just made me think in Hercules, like the animated Disney movie, when Phil is chasing
nymphs! They can't
the
keep
nymphs.
their hands off me!
Exactly. When they turn and he's chasing them, they turn into trees, and then one of them slaps him with the branches.
It's pretty much the same thing.
It is. I mean, it is basically the same thing. But yeah, that's what just made me think of.
I also find it funny that the naiads actually took not really funny, but I found it interesting that the naiads took interest in what was happening. Like, they like surfaced and they're like, what the heck is going on out there?
That's true. That is interesting that they, for once take interest in something outside of the pond.
Mm-hmm. But as soon as they see Kendra looking at them, they dive back in. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, the cart leaves and gradually everybody comes back. And I love, like, how Brendan Mull kind of conveys, like, the anxiousness of, like, those who had stayed behind.
Yeah.
Like, it even says, as satyrs, fairies, and dryads returned, they were welcomed by embraces from friends. Most then turned anxiously to await the arrival of other loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that, like, that's, like, they risked a lot doing this for the Sorensens just to even have a shot. So I just thought that was really nice.
And I think something that's interesting about this is that it shows, like, the trust that a lot of the creatures have in Grandpa Sorensen, that they would even, like, agree to, like, talk to him and agree to, like, their plan. And I mean that's why the centaurs didn't originally agree to it. And I just think that's interesting that, like, we don't really, like, think about it much, but it's kind of one of the first-hand examples we see of Grandpa, like, being the caretaker, like, interacting with the magical creatures in a very direct way. And I think that's really interesting.
And showing that he does have their respect.
Yeah.
Like, they respect him. They understand that he takes care of them, that he's done his best.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, with few exceptions, namely the centaurs being like, yes, he hasn't been doing much caretaking lately, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, they all respect him and understand that he's going to do his best to help them. So when he says that he has a plan, he has a way to possibly save them, they're going to help him out.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really cool. Another thing I think is interesting is right after where it says, like, they're waiting for their loved ones, Kendra sees the centaurs run back in, and she says, only 2 arrows remained in Cloudwing's quiver, which kind of makes me think that he had to use a lot of arrows to, like, fight off the dark creatures, which, that would be cool to, like, watch, like, to witness, because, like, the centaurs are just known for their prowess.
Yes.
So.
But also pretty sad, because if you think about it, like, the creatures that he's shooting, for the most part, are just dark and light creatures. Like, what if Doran... Or what if Newell had been around and he had been trying to get, like, what if he'd been one of the ones impaled by an arrow?
I don't think he's killing people, though. I don't know. Like, it says later that he, like, Doran says that he saw Cloudwing pin 2 dark satyrs to a tree.
That could mean, like, it went through both of their chests and pinned them to the tree.
So we're thinking, like...
Well, I'm just saying, how else is it going to pin them? They're not wearing pants.
Well, scruff? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But the thing in my mind is that, like, even though, like, they're dark creatures, the dark creatures aren't killing anyone. So would that give Cloudwing... reason, like, ability by the treaty to
But that's
kill?
Creatures. I think that's different. Like, the treaty binds the creatures to not allow them to hurt mortals, or at least that's my understanding.
Yeah.
So, but also that brings up the point, like, if Seth and Kendra had to kill a satyr, would that absolve them of any protections?
I don't know.
In order to, like, if it's self-defense, are you... whatchamacallit, are you justified by the treaty?
I don't know. I don't think the treaty is, like, a jury.
That's
It's
what I'm
hard.
saying.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
I'm just
I
saying.
guess I'm kind of confused if the rules apply to the magical creatures or not.
Well, I mean, I guess like
maybe
they are
not.
allowed. The dark creatures are allowed to harm humans. Like, well, I guess is it harming them? Because they reasoned that they couldn't have killed Coulter
Yeah.
because he had not broken the treaty.
Yeah.
But that was still harm,
But not.
and it wasn't
Well,
because they'd gone somewhere they
turning
should.
into a shadow wasn't like harming him though.
I think so personally. Like if he's in
It's
the
not
sun,
bodily harm.
it's biting him. Like that can't feel good.
Okay, but that's not like harm that will lead to his death.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it won't lead to his death, but it does still like. I don't know. For me, that like. It's a bit of a gray area to me.
Yeah, the treaty is a gray area, but like I don't know. I think that's a good point to bring up the thing with culture because that almost makes me think that they can't kill them, or like I don't know.
I feel like we should continue. We should table this discussion and continue it towards the end
Okay, that's fair.
because I mean, there's gonna be a fight. There's gonna
Well,
be
but
a fight.
maybe in like certain areas they can kill them, but not any area. Kind of like how, like if you go into a certain boundary, you know, like he talks a lot about like boundaries. Like Seth going into Growlithe's domain, Growlithe could kill him because he crossed a boundary that he wasn't supposed to. But somewhere out in the middle of, just right next to like the shrine, like just outside the pond area, like I don't know if that counts as like anything goes kind of area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe we're
Does
picking
the
it apart.
Oh, here's the thing. Like that's partially because like Growlithe has enough power to, I think, like the treaty cannot bind him. Or same thing with Olak the Glutton. He had enough power that he could harm Seth. Does, in theory, the plague give them additional powers, make them powerful enough to harm, not kill, but harm without causing... without, like...
I don't know, because with Olak, he didn't agree to the treaty, but he was let in as a guest.
That's true.
So because he didn't agree to the treaty, he could harm Seth, I think is how that works.
True.
Did Growlithe agree to the treaty?
I think he did. He said it says he came here to die. So
I think he did. So that's why in his domain he could, do whatever he wants. But without his domain, I don't. Unless he had enough power.
Yeah.
But in his current state, he doesn't have enough power.
Or willpower, for that matter.
Yeah, I don't think he can stand up anyway.
And then interesting.
So I wonder if it depends on where you are in the preserve and whether you've agreed to the treaty. But I'm not sure anymore.
Well, that makes me wonder, in the first book, when Seth and Kendra were looking for their grandpa after Midsummer's Eve.
Yeah.
They go over and they steal from the soup, some of the soup from
the ogress.
From the ogress,
yeah.
And she chases them. What would she have done to them if she could caught them? Could she have killed them?
I don't know.
Because
stealing.
Nero messed up Errol when he had the gold.
Yeah. The stolen gold, so he could claim it back because it was his property.
But was he?
So you're saying could the ogres have attacked them because they were trying to steal her soup?
Yeah.
I think so, maybe because of Nero attacked. Yeah. But also he didn't kill. What's his face?
But then again,
I keep thinking Christopher Vogel, whatever his name is.
I think he couldn't kill him because...
Yeah, because of the treaty, but he could, rough him up.
And I think there's also, the fact... Well, I think we're going too deep in this.
I mean, this is what this podcast is for, but yeah.
That's true. But,
I think...
Because, there's also, Kendra's able to get away from the imps and Muriel in the first book because, like what
Because
Grandpa
she didn't
said,
do anything.
she's committed no mischief, done
Yeah.
no magic.
Exactly.
Except for stealing stew.
But they didn't actually steal it. One of the satyrs actually cut the rope. I don't know how deep this gets into it. I don't know.
She drank it.
I don't
She
know,
had the
but
stew.
does the stew count as, like, the property the same as the gold bar from Nero? I don't know.
And because it wasn't a affront against the imps and Muriel, she was able to get away.
Wait, say that again?
So, like, if you're a magical creature, if I hit you, does that give another magical creature the right to hit me, or only you the right to hit me?
I don't know. That might be too specific. I don't think it has to do with, like... I think once you've broken, like, the mischief bound or whatever, like Kendra did, I think you have chosen to fully interact with magical creatures in a, like, to a certain degree. And so I think, like, she could interact with them by, like, touching them and they could touch her kind of thing, you know? But I don't know if magical creatures could really kill anybody in any certain place. I think you might have to be in, like, a certain boundary. Or if the person does something to, like, harm you directly, maybe then you can retaliate.
Yeah, I mean, Dale had a shotgun in the first book.
Yeah, but the creatures were invading their space in the house. And so because they invaded the space and crossed that boundary, he could attack them.
He had. So, in this case, when the dark creatures are attacking, going back to, like, I think what started this discussion, if, like, a dark satyr is charging at us, do we have the right to, if we have a shotgun, to take him down?
I'm not sure because the area, I don't know if the boundary of the area allows that or not. Because it's, like, neutral ground, like, just outside the pond. Like, they can't cross the boundary into the pond.
So if they're in the woods...
But just out in the woods, I feel like that's neutral ground. And I'm not sure if that means that anyone has, like, a claim on that area. I feel like whoever has a claim on an area has the right to defend themselves in that area if someone crosses it and, like, wants to cause harm.
Huh.
I'm not sure. That's kind of how I interpret it, but maybe I just need to go back and read the specific things about the treaty and how that works, because maybe I'm thinking about it all wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, another kind of discussion that goes along this point, we touched on it a bit earlier, but when they're, like, formulating the plan and they have the difference of opinion between Grandpa and Warren.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same topic, but
it's
something
though.
that we haven't covered that I wanted to make sure we did.
Yeah, it is along the same lines.
It's back in chapter 17?
It's in the previous chapter. Preparations, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's right before they go and talk to the centaurs.
Yes. And,
yeah,
they're discussing why it is that Tanu and Coulter can keep their minds, whereas someone like Newell can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Grandpa's talking about, like, how the nature of the magical creatures when they turn dark because of the plague, their natures have changed. And that's why they act differently as opposed to the humans whose, like, physical form changes, but not really their natures. Because humans have the ability to choose how they act as opposed to magical creatures. That's their nature.
Yeah, there's one quote he has. The creatures of Fablehaven are light or dark. Some are inherently builders, some are nurturers, some are playful. Some are inherently destroyers, some are deceivers, some crave power. Some love light, some love darkness, but change their nature, and without much resistance, their identities follow, like a fairy becoming an imp or an imp regaining her fairyhood. I love how after that, though, Grandpa looks at Grandma and he's like, am I waxing too philosophical? And she's like, a little.
Yeah. And then Warren, like, the next page over. Well, Seth is saying, so Newell acted differently because he isn't Newell anymore, Seth concluded. The plague totally overwhelmed him. He's something else. That's the basic idea, Grandpa said. And Warren, I think, is a little exasperated by this conversation. He says, If a starving bear ate my family, even though he may have had no wicked intentions, even though he was just being a bear, his nature has made him a menace, and I'm gonna shoot him. He sounded exasperated by the conversation.
But I do really like that, like, it's not just he's thinking about, like, philosophy, I don't like it. It's honestly that he has, like, a different world view of these creatures.
Yeah, he does.
And, like, because Grandma agrees, yes, the bear would need to be stopped. And, like, Grandma and Grandpa seem to believe that, like, you're not going to blame the bear the same way you're going to blame a serial killer who kills your family.
Yeah.
And Warren agrees with that. He's like, I understand that. It's just I don't have the same opinion. Like, he says, I can think of many creatures who have chosen to carry out good or evil actions regardless of their nature. I hold dark creatures more accountable for what they are and what they do than Stan does. I really like this is a question, like, everybody's being respectful, everybody's being understanding. Yeah. They're just saying, I believe something else. And I think that really does kind of bring up the topic of, like, nature versus nurture in human philosophy, I think. Like, there are some people who are raised to be, like they are just raised in situations where they are taught nothing else than either to be, like, have good nature or to have a bad nature just because that is the only thing they've been exposed to. And I feel like you're going to blame that person for being a horrible person a bit less as opposed to someone who knew the good, who understood, like, who followed, like, a good path, but then chose then to diverge. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, that is very psychology-based discussion. I agree. And I feel like there's a quote that I liked, but I'm trying to remember. Let me find it.
Like, their nature does not excuse bad decisions.
Yeah.
But it does change your view of the person who commits the bad decision as well.
Yeah. And I feel like the nature thing is more about the creatures because I feel like people, they have a certain nature maybe to be brought up, but I lost my train of thought. Hold on.
Train has been derailed. Well, like, it also brings up that it's not also necessarily cut or dry. Like, there is some gray area because, like, you have creatures of light who do bad things. We have the naiads, and there are creatures of darkness who do good things. Graulas, or the goblins, who are reliable in patrolling a dungeon or something like that. There is not, like, necessarily good versus bad. There is some overlap.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just interesting.
Okay. So kind of going back to what I was talking about with humans, I think this is the one I was thinking of. Because this is back when Seth was asking Kendra was asking why do the creatures change so completely, and that, like, goes along with, like, their nature and what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And then Seth wondering why Tanu and Culture, like, kept themselves after being transformed. And Grandpa says, you ask a difficult question. The short answer is that as a non-magical mortal beings, humans are affected differently by the plague. The rest requires speculation. For the most part, unapologetically, magical creatures are what they are. They tend to be less self-aware than humans, relying more on instinct. We humans are conflicted beings. Our beliefs don't always harmonize with our instincts, and our behavior doesn't always reflect our beliefs. We constantly struggle with right and wrong. We wage war between the person we are and the person we hope to become. We have a lot of practice wrestling with ourselves. As a result, compared to magical creatures, we humans are much more able to suppress our natural inclinations in order to deliberately choose our identities. So I like what he's saying there is that, like, we're not just kind of being acted upon by forces, and that's what makes us act a certain way, because that's kind of what happens to the magical creatures, is that they're being acted upon by a dark force, like a dark influence, and so that's why they are acting completely different than maybe what their nature is. But as humans, we have the choice to choose how we act in certain situations, and maybe sometimes we act according to how we act with our natural inclinations, but we can choose to overcome those. And so I think that's what he was talking about, the difference between creatures and humans, is that humans have the ability to choose how they act instead of, being, forced or influenced to act a certain way.
Yeah. Our nature follows our decisions, whereas for the magical creatures, their decisions follow their nature.
Yeah. Good summary.
I mean, pretty much just rephrase what Grandpa said later on, so it's not really me.
Well, it is an interesting conversation.
Yeah. And I like that we have, like, a few pages dedicated to this. Like, oh, okay, let's get some philosophy in here.
Yeah.
I bet there's some questions related to it at the back in the reading guide.
Probably.
We could probably dive into those at the end of this.
And I feel like
when we finish this book.
It connects to, like, the larger theme of that, like, mortals often influence creatures more than creatures influence mortals, because the mortals can choose to be influenced or not, but, like, the creatures, they kind of become influenced by the presence of mortals, which is interesting.
Yeah. Something about this topic is, unlike the one we've discussed earlier about, like, the treaty and stuff, it just reminded me of, like, the scene in Percy Jackson where Chiron's talking to Percy, like, immortals are bound by certain rules, like, they cannot do certain things, but for mortals, they can do anything, go anywhere, so long as they have the nerve.
I thought of that too, actually.
Mortals have, like, and even here in Fablehaven, mortals have, like, a certain, like, freedom in what they can do, whereas the magical creatures, especially in this case, are bound by treaty to the point where they cannot interfere in certain things, whereas mortals, like, if you're smart enough, you're brave enough, you're good enough, aka if you're Patton Burgess, you can go anywhere, do anything, and honestly, you can change and grow more than any magical creature can.
Yeah. There's just no guarantee that you'll live through all these experiences.
True.
And that's the caveat of it, is that you can go anywhere, but if you cross a certain line, you expose yourself to more danger.
That you better hope you're equipped to
yeah.
That you better hope you're equipped to handle.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes. Now I just have Chiron's voice going through my head. Go anywhere, challenge anyone, as long as you have the nerve.
I hear it.
And Percy takes that and is like, okay,
Ares, let's go.
I can challenge anybody.
Like, I specifically have it, like, when he thinks of that, like, when Anatha's like, Percy, be careful, like, as he's, like, going up to face, no, not Ares, to face, Atlas in book 3. He actually, like, he remembers, and, like, you hear the quote in his head, and he's thinking, so long as he has the nerve.
I mean...
And Atlas is just like, come on, little hero.
Face a god, a titan, a giant, Mother Earth, you know...
Tartarus,
like, what creation itself, whatever, you know. Nothing's too big for Perseus Jackson. But that's a different podcast, so.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And so we go from Kendra's point of view, watching everyone go out past the hedge as a distraction and watching Hugo take the cart, to then Seth in the cart under a stuffy tent, and he's like, oh, it's really hot under here. And he's like, I want to get out of here.
We get a full page of him just contemplating, oh my gosh, I'm dying of heat stroke.
He's just, like, complaining to himself, being like, this is the worst. I would die for a breath of fresh air.
You probably would in this case.
Exactly. It would lead to your death, so... Yeah. Or would it? I guess that conversation... Anyway... They make it to the manor.
Yeah, and I also find, I don't know if we covered this, but, like, they're specifically going in blind. Because...
Yeah, literally.
So none of them have drunk the milk this morning.
That's true.
And they are, like, I feel like they're trying to really take advantage, I think, of the treaty's protections. Because if you are going around blind, even if you know that stuff's out there, it gives you an extra layer of protection due to your weakness? No, there's a... Due to that disability to see.
Oh, there's a word.
Fail?
Ignorance.
Ignorance, that's a good one. Thank you.
I was thinking ignorance isn't bliss, but I was only remembering bliss, and I was like, what goes with that saying?
No, but yeah, so they're going in, like, because Seth, like, was like, well, when I went into the manor, I hadn't drank the milk. Yeah. And I was able to get in, and I was probably able to be there for several minutes before I saw, like, the twisty whirlwind, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Gotta scoot.
Exactly. That's why they're going without the milk. It's like, well, if Seth could do all that without the milk, I think we can try it too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Only problem, and we get a hint of this. When they're approaching the manor, Seth sees dark strings coming from all around, like centering in on the thing in the in the manor. Mm-hmm. And I really think that's because, like, maybe Seth was able to avoid the specter in the manor for several minutes, but that was before the nail was added into the equation.
Yeah.
So Seth, because he sees all these strings, he's like, oh, whatever's inside that manor must be the source of the plague.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, stands to reason, is now much more powerful.
More powerful and more active
and
as well.
Ooh, yeah, good point. And so now, like, they go in, Grandma and Grandpa go in together, Warren goes in the back, and Dale breaks a window. Rude.
Mm-hmm. It's an abandoned mansion, and it's haunted.
True.
It adds to the ambiance of the place.
Yeah, that's fair. And I love how they always focus on how silent it is in this moment.
Yeah.
Like, Seth hears, like, Grandpa's whistle to signal going in. Like, it's really clear to him.
I think this part, like, picturing it in my mind would make a really good part of, like, of the adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seeing, like, Seth seeing, like, the chords. And it would obviously be, like, a more, like, spooky, like, horror type thing, which would kind of work for this part, obviously.
Like, either, like, no music or, like, just a very slow, haunting soundtrack.
Something. Or, like, it's super quiet, and you just, like, Seth is just, like, watching his family go in, and he sees all the chords, and it's, like, it's almost like he can see what's coming before they can, which is super ominous. Mm-hmm. And I think it would just be really, I just really like the way that Brandon, like, describes it, and I feel like it really makes it so I can picture it in my mind exactly what's happening and how it's going down. I think that's really, to show that he's, like, good at writing, obviously, and, like, the visualization of it, and I think it just sets up a really interesting scene.
Yeah, I'm just looking at these, like, few paragraphs, and I'm seeing silence, they're whispering.
Yeah.
Like, all, like, they're just, like, really, like, even though, like, nothing's telling them you have to be quiet, because, I mean, they can't see anything. It's actually kind of interesting that Seth can see the chords without drinking the milk. Side note. We can come back to that if we want to later. But, like, it's just repeating quiet, nothing, and it's very interesting. But then Seth decides, it's been a minute, my turn.
Yeah. Which is a good thing that he doesn't listen and stay put. Mm-hmm. Because he goes in the front door and he sees Grandma and Grandpa, like, completely still, like, stuck, like how Grandpa was with Growlithe, and he realizes that they're struck by fear again. And then he sees like a, I guess, apparition.
The dust swirled in a vortex is what he sees. I also find it interesting at this point, another proof that the apparition has gotten so much more powerful. Mm-hmm. When Seth went in the first time, he had not already been impressed upon by the nail, and he was able to go through and exit without being frozen by fear like they are doing right now.
That's true.
However, with the nail in the equation, now even the apparition, the specter, can completely immobilize all four of Seth's family members, Warren, Dale, Grandma, and Grandpa, even though they're not even within sight.
That's
like, throughout
true.
the entire house. Warren went in the back door, and this is a pretty well-sized manor, it's implied.
Yeah.
Dale everybody's immobilized.
That's true.
And I love how Seth takes one look at what's going on. He's like, screw it. I need my eyes. And he looks, and he's like, and I really love that we get some foreshadowing all the way back from book 1 paid off right here. Because, lo and behold, the one specter that was with Muriel and Bahamut and outside Seth and Kendra's window during Midsummer's Eve that they barely kept from coming inside is the specter in the manor. Mm-hmm. So.
Yep, it's the woman with, like, the dark, flowy tendrils. And that is a good payoff. That's true. I actually kind of forgot about that.
I honestly kind of wonder if Brandon Mull had like her entire backstory already planned out, or if he just had her
In his back pocket?
In his back pocket. Like, he designed, like, this cool character, and then he didn't want her to get axed off in the first book. He's like, I'm just going to have her kind of float away.
That's next season's villain.
And I'm just going to pull her back in again later.
Yeah. That's a good question. It's interesting. I wonder that, too. And so he tries to run to his grandparents, which is probably just, I mean, obviously, in the moment, he can't think about it, but probably just awful because the lady... like has like the black tendrils and they're faster than Seth can run, and so she gets to his grandparents first and turns them into shadow people
instantly.
Yeah,
like no bite required. Like seriously, like a touch from those
That's
ribbons,
true.
Done.
Yeah, because with bites it took like an hour to a couple hours for it to happen completely, and it's just like that they become shadow people.
Well, sorry, side note. He moves faster than the tendrils, but they were closer. The Spectre. Just side note, because he's about to start running around this entire place dodging her, and so I feel like that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
So yeah, he keeps like Seth's like, okay, Grandma and Grandpa are lost, and he books it. He's like, I gotta find Dale. Mm-hmm. Dale came in a side window. He finds Dale. Dale's also not moving.
Immobilized, yeah.
And this is a heartbreaking decision that he has to make at this moment. He could make it to Dale, but he's like, by the time I get there, it won't matter. Yeah. And so he just has to turn around and just sprint to Warren to find him, because he's like, Dale will give us time, is his like reasoning. I'm like, okay, this child is like 12 and he's having to make these decisions right now. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor boy. And so he manages to get to Warren, and another heartbreaking moment. He manages, like, he gets to Warren, and he's like, he has to, he's
trying to pull him toward the door.
He says, I'm going to have to pull him outside. So he grabs onto him, and Warren, like, gasps and comes back to himself. But also, it's so sad because Warren immediately says, the cold, like the grove.
Yeah.
With the Revenant. Like, this man, he's not only suffering from, like, the effects of the fear from the Spectre.
Trauma.
It's also PTSD.
Yep. This whole family has trauma, let's be honest.
Totally, 100%. It's just Warren's the one who always tries to put it, like, he has arguably some of the most.
Yeah.
And he's just always, like, puts on a brave face.
Mm-hmm. He puts himself into it to protect the people that he loves. Mm-hmm. And one thing I do want to know is that even when Seth is, like, touching him, like, it doesn't, like, cure Warren completely. Like, he's still, like, slow and still, like, feeling the effects of the fear, which is, like, that just shows you how powerful, like, she is, like you were saying. And that's crazy.
And also, as connected with that, how powerful Seth is, then, that he can completely shrug off the effects. Mm-hmm. Like, he is not affected at all by this magical fear.
He is immune to this kind of fear.
Mm-hmm. Very helpful.
Yeah.
And, like, Warren says, man, so they, like, are booking it up the stairs trying to find this room.
As fast as they can.
And, like, Warren is just stumbling and, like, he can't keep up, and he just says, go.
Yeah, he's basically saying, like, go, I'll give you as much time as possible. By you leaving me and her claiming me, that'll give you enough time to get to the room. So, once again, Warren offers himself as, like, a sacrifice.
Warren, stop it.
Because he will do anything to
protect
the ones he loves, and then, once that's done, finish the mission.
Mm-hmm. And, like, Seth is just having to be, he's got to be the man right now, and he's like, he's like, part of his thoughts right here is, if he failed to claim the artifact, all these sacrifices would be in vain.
Mm-hmm. It's also happening so fast, too. It's just, like, one after another falling down. Like,
and this boy, he, like, has so much adrenaline. He manages to break through a locked door. Like, he just says, no, I'm getting in here. And he rams through a solid wood door. Like, I can imagine he's just running on pure adrenaline at this point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And so he gets into the room, and he looks around, and he doesn't see the safe. And he kind of, like, starts pulling books off the bookshelf. He's like, where is this
panicking.
And then he looks again, and the safe has appeared.
Yes.
And so he starts
And he has
1
he's
minute.
like 1 minute, 1 minute on the
Yeah.
clock. Let's go.
And so he does the dial, like turns the dial to, whatever the numbers are, 33, 22, 31. And he opens it and he sees this sphere-looking thing sitting there with some buttons. And so he picks it up and he knows that the Shadow Lady is coming. And
he can feel the cold. Like, he may not be paralyzed, but he can feel the cold.
Exactly. And so then, out of desperation, he runs to the window trying to look for a way out, and then he starts pushing buttons.
Wait, side note before you get to this. It says here that the thing is a foot in diameter. I never thought about that. Like, that's
It's like the size of like a basketball?
that's
Soccer ball?
That's a thick thing.
That is big.
And Seth is just having to, like...
That's true.
Like, I guess I always pictured, like, in Harry Potter, like, the prophecy... Like, I think, like, Harry's able to hold it in, like, one hand. Like, I got more of, like, maybe like a softball kind of size. Like, a woman's softball. Maybe a little bit bigger, but, like, can comfortably fit in your palm.
That's true.
And that's what I always picture this device as. Like, not too big, and, like, it's going to be hefty just because of, like, it's got a lot of buttons and gears inside, probably.
Yeah.
But no, this thing's a foot wide.
That's true.
That thing's hefty.
I never noticed that.
Hefty.
That is big. I wonder how much it weighs. It's got to be kind of heavy, at least cumbersome to carry around.
Yeah, and then Seth even says it looks somewhat heavier than it looked. That thing already looks heavy
Probably
to me.
already, yeah.
Like,
Okay,
okay,
like
Seth.
the size of like a basketball or something. That's big.
And I just love at this point, Seth is completely desperate, and like you said,
He pushes
buttons.
and, well, you don't know the consequences sometimes when you push a button.
But thank goodness that these are the consequences.
You know what happens? A wild Patton appears.
Did you just make a Pokemon reference?
Yes, I did.
No, seriously, I just love like it says, and he began pressing the sphere's buttons, and suddenly he was not alone in the room. And I just love that, like this entire book we've gotten a lot more Patton references, just because he has been more entwined with the story.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh man, it would be so cool to get to know this guy. He may or may not have killed a dragon. He managed to get through this vault all by himself, probably. Took the artifact, re-hit it. He's probably such a cool guy. I would love to meet him or read about him. Wish granted!
Yeah. And I love that it's like, because like everyone's starting to know Patton better, Seth immediately recognizes him and he's like, that's Patton Burgess. So Patton Burgess just, appears all of a sudden and he's like, oh, what the heck? Like, and then Patton's like,
he doesn't even flinch! Doesn't even miss a beat, immediately makes a wisecrack. You must be the youngest safecracker I've ever seen.
He's like, what's going on?
What's up?
That's not his first question. That's his second thing that he says. So funny.
Like, come on. I don't think anything could phase this man at this point.
That's true.
Like, he can be pleasantly surprised, but he's just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, that is how he rolls. And then boom, Shadow Lady is there, and then he says, "Hello, Aphira." And then
immediate recoil from the apparition. Like, wait, what?
She's like, "Wait, how are you here?"
I thought you were dead. My death was extremely exaggerated. Oh man. And I love how he uses that surprise, that recoil to stall for just a few seconds.
Yeah.
He just starts talking. Can Burgess men shut their mouths? I don't think it's possible.
No.
They just have running commentary constantly.
That's true. Well, even first, he's almost frozen completely by the fear for a second, and then Seth grabs his hand, and then he can turn around and see Aphira. I forgot that part.
Yeah, I did forget about. Oh, I missed that when I was reading through this.
Yeah, I just looked and I was like, oh yeah.
But he was still moving.
But yeah, he was almost it wasn't completely. He could move a little bit, and so I think that's really interesting that Patton is not. I mean, he's supposed to be a dragon tamer, so
which is a similar thing.
Similar with the fear.
Yes.
Interesting.
And we have some other things that imply maybe he has extra abilities as well, because he wrote a message in the secret fairy language.
That's true.
And so, we have another example of somebody who kept their mind but was not able to completely retain their faculties.
Yeah.
Kendra, when she was facing down with the dragon. Mm-hmm. So right there we see,
Foreshadowing.
2 plus 2 equals 3.
Maybe. And then after, a little bit of talking, Patton's like, to the roof. And Seth's like, there is no roof. And he's like, yeah, there is. So he jumps up, he grabs the edge on the outside, hoists himself up above the window, and then takes he says the chronometer, I think. He names it. Does he?
Not
or is
yet.
That later? Dang
That's
it.
a little bit.
I always get that
No,
wrong.
but I just love this part where yeah, he jumps up for the roof and he looks down. He says, "Come on," and Seth just says, "Okay." He's got this artifact in one arm, and he's got he probably doesn't have as much he can't do a one arm pull up.
No,
I imagine.
Patton pulls him up.
But Seth just reaches out and he jumps. He just stretches out and he jumps. Patton has to catch him. Seth just said, leap of faith, lunging out into open air, and Patton grabs him.
It's true. And then Seth's like, we need to get out of here. Who are you? The caretaker's grandson. Fablehaven is at the brink of destruction. And
Again,
I feel
doesn't miss a beat.
just sums up the situation all the time. Fablehaven's at the brink of destruction.
And Patton says, okay, let's go, Seth, and just jumps off the roof. A 3-story roof.
But he jumps onto a tree branch. I mean, he's not jumping himself off onto the ground, but yeah, it's still insane.
But the coordination of this man, he sails off the roof, catches hold of a limb, the limb breaks, he lets go, and then catches another one. I mean, come on.
And then he says, toss me the chronometer. So now we know it's called the chronometer. And then
I wonder what this thing has to do with.
I love this quote right here when he says, when jumping, well, first of all, Seth's like, you expect me to jump? And then Patton says, when jumping is the sole option, you jump and try to make it work. Toss it. That's a good life lesson right there. I mean,
when all you can do is jump,
you jump and work with it.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of one of my dad's, dadisms. Every dad's got dadisms.
Yeah.
He says, control the controllables and let's just let go of what you can't control. At this point, Seth had no other option than to jump. And, he just had to make it work. And I feel like that's kind of what, Patton just goes with. He's like, okay, I'm in this new situation. I'm going to make it work. The only thing I control, that's myself right now.
It's exactly Patton's life. He puts himself in these impossible situations and then he improvises.
I think BS is another good way to put it.
Yeah, same thing.
And he even left the best branch for Seth. I mean, come on. This man probably has 100 pounds on this kid. And he said, let me leave the nice, thick branch for him. Yeah. I'll take the flimsy one that's going to break the second I touch it.
In fact, he was even, thinking about that. I was just like, man, this guy thinks quickly.
Uh-huh.
He is fast on his feet and in his mind.
The second he heard, caretaker's grandson, Fablehaven is in danger. He's like, okay, let's go.
It's like, well, first of all, we have to get off this roof to fix this situation.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like he also immediately trusts Seth. Mm-hmm. He initially he says, you're the youngest safe breaker I've ever seen. But at the same time, I bet he's got several variables running through his brain at this point. He's like, how else would he know that the safe is here? He probably glanced at the safe, doesn't look like it's been broken into it or anything. Mm-hmm. Ethera, the apparition, is actively trying to get it was chasing him.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, he's clearly not on her side, and I know her side is a bad side. Mm-hmm. And he grabbed my hand, helped me keep my mind, and he is not trying to run away. He's not he's trying to help is basically.
Yeah.
So I just found that interesting. It looks like he's just kind of blindly trusting Seth, but I'm betting not. And he probably grills him in about 10 minutes once they're not in active danger.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
I think Patton's got good enough instincts to be able to figure people out. And also, you didn't really have a choice but to go away with Seth as well, because Seth had the chronometer and Ethera was there and they had to get out. So, yeah. And then, so Seth does jump and take the leap. So
that's all it is, Miles.
Good for him.
Leap of faith. Now, what's up, danger?
I love that freaking movie.
I love how even though he's getting ready to take the leap, he's like, this would mean certain death. I can see myself missing.
Yeah.
oh, creepy apparition's coming up behind me. Okay, let's go.
Yep, he's like, well, that was the motivation I needed. Shadow Lady is on the roof.
Mm-hmm. And I love how they both just start, like, climbing down, and, like, Seth's like, I don't even care at this point. I just jumped off a roof. He's like, I'm descending recklessly at this point.
So, yeah, they get down, and then...
Patton catches him, too. Like, he's like, there were no limbs for the last 10 feet. He hung and dropped. Patton caught him. Come on, Patton. Like,
I love this next, like, interaction, because they're talking about, like, Athera and stuff, and then Seth says... You know the revenant in the grove in the valley between 4 hills? Patton shot him a surprise glance. As a matter of fact, I do. We think Kurosok got a hold of the nail that gave the revenant his power. How did the revenant lose the nail? They reached the cart and clambered into the bed. Go, Hugo, Seth panted. Fast as you can, back to the pond. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Seth located the spare flash powder and shared from Patton. Actually, I pulled the nail out. You did? Patton looked astonished. How? A pair of pliers and some courage potion. Patton regarded Seth with a broad grin. I think the two of us are going to get along just fine.
At that moment, he said, I'm adopting this kid.
This is before he knows that he's actually related to him, so.
Yeah, he doesn't know what time he's in. He doesn't know he doesn't know.
He doesn't know who's the caretaker.
Yeah, so, like, he's just like, I don't know who you are, but I like you.
Yeah, he's like, it's exactly how Warren reacted when Kendra told him where Seth went when Warren woke up in the second book.
Yes.
Exactly. He's like, I think I'm going to like this kid. And I just love that it's the same, you know, with all the Burgess men, you know, they all like, they act the same. And they're like, yeah, we're going to get along just fine.
I mean, imagine Grandpa in his prime. I bet he probably had some, like, he may not be a Burgess, but he seems like he's got some fun.
He's a kindred spirit.
He's a kindred spirit.
So yeah, Seth is having to like quickly tell Patton about the plague and everything and explain. And so, yeah, gets to do it on the fly. Mm-hmm. And then I love like, he's like, which reminds me, how are you here? You're not even old. Like,
and I love how Patton's like, yeah, I learned a couple tricks.
Yeah. Learned that the chronometer is the artifact that has power over time.
What a big surprise when it's literally called chronometer. Chrono. Time. It's in the name.
I mean, I didn't know that the prefix chrono meant time, but I guess, like, chronology is what I think of, like, chronological.
Chronos, Titan of Time. Chronological.
Is that spelled with a K, though?
Yes, but it's the same root.
Okay, well, I didn't learn that Latin prefix.
But I just, like, chronometer is kind of on the nose. Like, when you think about it.
I mean, they're all on the nose.
Yeah, that's true. Sands of Sanctity.
Sanctity, purity, you know.
Yeah. Translocator. Translocate.
Mm-hmm.
Oculus.
The font of immortality. That's the most on the nose. I wonder what that does.
Gee, I wonder.
Keep you immortal?
Am I missing one? No, we got all 5. By the way, side note, how do you pronounce the demon's name?
Which
here in
one?
Fablehaven? Here, not Kurosok.
Growlus.
Interesting.
Growlus.
I always I give the U a little bit more of oomph. Growlus.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah.
Like a growl, like a growl.
Growlus.
Growlus.
Book versus audiobook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you versus audiobook. Because who knows how other people pronounce it who read.
That's true. Well, that one I'm pronouncing it as spelling. That is its exact spelling. Growlus.
Growlus. I've heard both in the audiobook.
Yeah.
So yeah, Patton says that the chronometer has a special thing where if you push a button, the next time that button is pushed, you are brought forward to that time when that button is pushed for 3 days. And so he did that to, just in case it was stolen, so that he could hopefully get it back from whoever stole it. So he used it as like an extra precaution against thieves. Mm-hmm. And good thing Seth just decided to push any button that he could.
And that's the button he pushed, and it didn't accidentally like make him a 100-year-old man or into a baby or transport him back to like the 1400s.
Or, yeah, I was supposed to like take him back in time or something.
It was a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
And so they just keep briefing, and I just love, like, they're just, like, they don't even miss a beat. Like, Seth's, like, just starts immediately briefing Patton, like, everybody's a shadow, everything. We got, like, darks, fairies, dwarves, satyrs, you name it, and, like, all these things.
Yeah.
And, like, Patton's like, I was just gonna steal the thing back. Now I have to stop an entire plague. Come on. And,
well, there's a perk for him.
oh my gosh, like, I love how he's like, okay, so we're going to the pond.
Yes, this is the perk.
And this is, like, the little thing, he's like, he speaks hesitantly. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
what about, Lena? And the sad thing is that he asks, has she passed yet?
Well, because he would have expected her to have
Like,
died.
yeah, he hasn't even, like, well, at this point, he probably knows it's been, like,
A while.
I think 100 years? 200? 150?
It's been like between 100 and 150
I mean, the
years,
safe was
since-
made before
since
World War
he-
One, World War One.
Yeah, I think he was born like somewhere in like the mid to late 1800s.
Yeah.
So like he lived between like the late 1800s until like the 1900s.
Yeah, he's probably sprung forward at least 80, 90 years, and so
Yeah.
they like he would have known that Lena was aging slowly, but at that point, you never know. And, like that's why I think the way like, and Seth's like, no, actually, she's a naiad, and Patton's just like, wait, what?
He's like, that's not supposed to be possible.
Next, you're gonna tell me that all the imps on the preserve are fairies again. About that.
Well. Surprise, surprise, Patton. Your lovely wife is still alive.
And lovely again.
And
She
still
is no longer-
has the still is in love with you, so.
Yes, like she's still not. Oh, I meant like she's de-aged since she went back into the pond.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm also saying after all this time, she still loves you.
My heart.
So yeah.
Later in this exchange, like they managed to like Seth mostly catches Patton up on most of the stuff. Patton's like, okay, we need to move swiftly. Have Hugo abandon the cart, and we can go to the rest of the way, and Hugo can just carry us. And Seth's like, that might work. Patton's like, of course it will.
Of course it will, kid. I've done this before.
I've been around the pond a few times. Yeah.
That also makes me wonder, how long has Hugo been at Fablehaven?
Yeah, because Patton doesn't
Patton
recognize him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel. What did they say at the beginning of the first book?
I can't
When they
remember.
introduced Hugo, he's like, he was a gift to the preserve.
That's the thing, is that I feel like...
It said centuries ago.
Yeah. I don't know. Because I don't think that Patton knows Hugo.
Well, it never says that he doesn't.
That's true.
Seth kind of
Well,
presumes. He
yeah,
says,
he does.
Hugo, the golem.
He does say, I almost think that he does know Hugo. Maybe not.
But I don't...
But then he doesn't order Hugo. It's Seth that does it.
Yes.
And if he knew Hugo, Hugo would recognize him and still take orders from him.
Most
like.
likely.
Hmm.
Or maybe he was a gift to a new caretaker after Marshall, or after the previous caretaker was killed.
Yeah.
During the whole Patton's uncle debacle.
Fiasco. Yeah.
That's a good word for it too. And so maybe it was like a gift in the last 100 years.
Maybe.
Maybe also
I don't remember what it says about Hugo in the first book. I'd have to look that up.
was Patton ever a caretaker of Fablehaven? I'm not sure that they were.
I don't know. I feel like he was, but then he went on so many adventures.
I feel like it would
wouldn't
have been
seem like he would be.
it would have been irresponsible for him to be the caretaker.
Well, I don't know if he could even really... I guess he could leave, but that would be like him abandoning his post. And he's
Yeah.
a very honorable person, so he wouldn't do that.
I feel and we already discussed earlier that there's probably at least a brother involved to pass the name down because
Yeah.
because that's why it's their great uncle and not their great great grandfather.
Well, and also, I feel like it's Stan Sorensen who is the main caretaker.
But it says
But
he
if
married
it came
into it.
through... Oh, it does?
It's like I think it says he married into the family and then he got the preserve.
Stupid
I feel like-
patriarchy. I'm just kidding.
No, but like I think I don't know. I feel like it works better with the whole grandma-grandpa dynamic, personally. But,
Grandma should be in charge.
she is.
True. But, like, Stan is, like, the main one. So, anyway, whatever.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
This is why we need the family tree. But
Yes!
it needs to go past. Can we get the family tree of Patton Burgess and all the Burgesses down to the Warren and then the Sorensens?
And also a history of Fablehaven, please.
History of
like, all the
Fablehaven.
caretakers.
Yeah, the caretakers, at least from, like, Patton's uncle.
Yeah, Marshall
Or maybe one before, all the way down to Stan.
Uh-huh.
That would be nice.
Very.
That would actually help a lot. So, that would be great, Brandon, if you could do that. I would love that. History of Fablehaven, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we already did Caretaker's Guide, but that's about, like, the magical creatures. It's like Fantastic Beasts and where to find them.
But not adapted into a horrible movie franchise.
That's true. It's just the textbook of it.
I have feelings.
Ooh. So yeah, they go back to the pond, and that's where the chapter ends.
Yep. So yes, we lost like 5 people, but we got Patton. So really, we're ending on the on an up
You
note.
gained the world's greatest adventurer. He's priceless.
Of course, we did lose the world's current greatest adventurer.
Warren.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. We traded one bad Burgess for another bad A Burgess.
Yeah. The Burgess of last century the Burgess of this century for the Burgess of last century.
Plus Grandma, Grandpa, and Dale, but you know.
Yeah. Do you have any Sethisms or any Warrenisms or Kendraisms that we missed?
I'm checking right now. I have the "Now You Beg" from Kendra after the confrontation with the satyrs.
Yeah.
Oh, I got one. Warren's describing centaurs to Seth, and like Seth is like, "Oh, so centaurs are kind of like fairies, like they're very vain," and like and Warren's like, not really. So fairies are vain, but they also care what we think, and so they'll still interact with us because they want to be told they're beautiful. Centaurs just don't give a crap. Like they know they're good, and everybody else is just inferior, and they perceive all other. This is a direct quote. Centaurs sincerely perceive that all other creatures as inherently lower than themselves. They sound like my math teacher, Seth said. And of course, Warren grins because they share a brain cell.
Exactly. I found mine. It's in the same chapter, Refuge. It's when Seth's walking around looking at other magical creatures.
Oh, I know which one you are.
Seth walked with Kendra and Grandpa toward the cart before veering away, hustling to join a line of dwarves trooping by. None of them stood much taller than his waist. "How are you men doing?" he asked. When they looked up, he saw that despite their sparse whiskers, they were all women. One of them spat at his feet. He hopped away from the loogie. "Sorry, I'm nearsighted," Seth said.
And then following
really
that, like the very next paragraph, like he like kind of justifies himself for going off to like hang out with explore all the magical creatures.
Yeah.
And because he's supposed to be helping Warren and Dale like build the tents. He's like, who wants to set up tents at this time? Besides, quote, it would give Warren and Dale an occasion for brotherly bonding.
Yeah. That was funny too. There's so many good jokes in these chapters.
Yeah, this one was fire.
This one's
and it's only gonna get better.
Yeah.
Now that we got Patton, you know it's
Exactly.
only gonna get better.
It's so good.
Kendra accused him of voluntarily reading. Should I telephone the authorities?
Oh yeah, we talked about that one.
We talked about. I just
Yeah.
recap.
Yeah.
It's just too good.
So good.
It's just too good.
Too funny.
We better lock him in the quiet box. So help me, Seth. I'll take him up on that.
Everyone's like, don't give me a good idea and bet that I won't do it. Well,
But now we have Patton.
we have Patton and we have the last chunk of chapters to go through
Do
for
we
this
only
book.
have 6 left?
Yeah. Remember we divided it into 4?
Oh yeah.
We
So
decided
next week
6
it's gonna
chapters.
be
Yep. So
Duel.
next time.
Yeah.
Oh, Duel. Oh, yes, I'm
Oh,
so
yes.
excited.
Because Seth has some dues, has some debts that must be paid.
He has to face his consequences.
Face the music.
Face the consequences of his actions. Unless Patton has something to say about it. Anyway.
He always does.
So that's it for this week. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Knights of the Dawn podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate all you guys do by liking, subscribing, commenting, sending us emails, any of that.
Interacting in any way whatsoever.
Or even just listening. I don't care, It's all great. So thank you so much for all you do. And if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend. If you know anyone else that listens, reads, whatever, Fablehaven or any of Brandon Mull's books, feel free to share this podcast and help us grow and reach a wider audience, because we just want to, grow this community and just a group of fans who are a fan of Brandon Mull.
Help people realize how darn good these books actually are.
Exactly. So, yeah, remember you can find us on anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you haven't, go subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our video on the tier list and everything. And watch out for any new videos or YouTube shorts that we come up with to post there. And if you have any questions, you can email us at knightsofthedawnpodcast@gmail.com. Other than that,
I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, other than that, have a good day, everyone.
Drink the milk.
See ya.